Hi, welcome to my channel. The full version of the audiobook is available on my Patreon. You can quickly find it through the link in my profile description. Thank you for your support.
Chapter 1 begins with being removed from the Paris Saint-Germain squad. Image of the male lead. On June 1st, in the early morning of the Champions League final, seeing Maldini and his teammates, who had persevered for 10 years, lift the Champions League trophy for PSG was truly moving. Maldini deserved it, and PSG deserved it. June 10, 2017, 2 p.m. Yan Yuan stood in front of the office door of sports director Antero Enrique, his fingers slightly curled and then relaxed. He took a deep breath and finally raised his hand to knock on the door. "Come in," came Enrique's voice from inside the door. As Yan Yuan pushed open the door, the cold air from the office hit him, and he subconsciously tensed his shoulders. Enrique was sitting behind his large desk, flipping through a document. When he saw him come in, he gestured with his chin for him to sit down. "Yan, have a seat." Yan Yuan sat down, placed his hands on his knees, and unconsciously rubbed the fabric of his training pants with his fingertips, nervously unsure of what to do. Enrique closed the file, crossed his arms on the table, and looked at him calmly. "I think you've already heard that the team will be making some adjustments next season." Yan Yuan nodded, his throat tightening. He certainly heard about it. It was all over the Paris Saint-Germain dressing room. This season, the club is looking to sign Neymar, as well as Monaco's rising French star Kylian Mbappé. That's right. In order to better comply with the requirements of the financial fair play policy, and also to optimize the squad, the club needs to free up some positions, including the youth teams, Enrique said, carefully choosing his words. "Considering your situation in the youth team, we have decided not to renew your contract." Upon hearing this, Yan Yuan's breath caught in his throat for a moment, but his face remained expressionless. He had guessed this day might come back in May at the end of the season, but when he actually heard it, he still couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. "Sir, I still want to ask, is it because youth training needs French players?" Yan Yuan asked, his voice lacking confidence. Enrique frowned slightly. Yan Yuan's question displeased him somewhat. "It's not entirely because of that. The team needs more mature players who can contribute immediately, and more talented young stars, and you," Enrique said, still maintaining his politeness. "Yan, I know you're a hard-working player, but professional football isn't something you can succeed in just by working hard." Upon hearing this, Yan Yuan became nervous. "Sir, I can play in other positions. I won't compete with French youth players for playing time. I can agree to be loaned to any club, even in a lower-level league." Yan Yuan still wanted to fight for himself one more time. Enrique sighed. He had seen far too many young people like this. The name of Paris Saint-Germain's youth academy is certainly precious to all young people who love football, and he can understand why Yan Yuan is so reluctant to leave. "Yan, let me be blunt. You're 17 years old, and your technical characteristics are basically set. You're not French, nor are you from the Paris youth training system. The club has no reason to invest more in you." Yan Yuan lowered his head and remained silent for a few seconds, then looked up and asked him again. "So, you think I can't play in the top 5 leagues?" Enrique looked at him with a hint of pity in his eyes, but more so with professional calm. "Yes, you are only average in talent. What the top league needs are players who are mature in both mentality and skills, players who can change the game. Unfortunately, you don't have that kind of talent." Yan Yuan didn't say anything more. He knew that the director had already made his point and there was no room for him to maneuver. "The club will give you a release clause, enough to tide you over for a while." Enrique stood up, indicating the end of the conversation. "Good luck." "Thank you, sir." Yan Yuan also stood up, nodded, turned and left. Just as the door closed, he heard Enrique add a sentence behind him. "Don't be too sad, kid. That's just how the world of football is. People will always come in, and people will always leave." Back in his dorm, Yan Yuan sat on his bed, staring at the group photo of Paris Saint-Germain U19 on the wall. In the photo, he stands in the corner with a bright smile. This photo was taken when he first came to Paris. At that time, he naively thought that he would play here for many years and even make it into the first team. But reality dealt him a heavy blow. He took out his phone and dialed his father Yan Yuan's number. The call was quickly connected, and the father's voice came through the receiver. "Son." "Dad, I've been fired." Yan Yuan said calmly. He was trying very hard to control his emotions. On the other end of the phone, after a 2-second silence, Mr. Yan asked. "Enrique spoke to you personally?" Another brief silence followed. Yan Yuan could imagine his father's expression at that moment, his brows furrowed slightly, his fingers tapping lightly on the table, a habit he had when he was thinking. "It's all right," the father finally spoke, his tone relaxed, as if he had long anticipated this day. "Son, don't rush back. Find a hotel in Paris, travel around, and relax." Yan Yuan was already deeply hurt, and hearing his father say that made him even more upset. He replied, "Dad, I didn't come to Paris for a vacation." After hearing this, Mr. Yan smiled and continued to comfort his son. "I know, but you don't have to make yourself suffer. I'll transfer you some money. Take a few days to relax and travel around Paris. I'll continue to try to get you a new team. Don't call your mom recently." Yan Yuan knew his father's meaning. This matter must not be known to his mother. If she knew Yan Yuan had been released by Paris Saint-Germain, she probably would have sent her son back to England to study hard, so he could either become an office worker or return home to take over the restaurant business. Yan Yuan's mother, Li Shuwen, is a third-generation English Chinese who runs a Chinese restaurant in Birmingham. She has always been straightforward and open-minded, and she takes a neutral attitude toward her son playing football, neither approving nor opposing it. Yan's father was from Shaanxi. He came to England when he was young and started a small import and export company from scratch. Later, he married Yan Yuan's mother in England and finally settled down here. He was also a football fan, and after Yan Yuan was born, he also took on the role of his son's agent. Although not particularly professional, as a good businessman, Mr. Yan has a deep understanding of negotiation. He is also quick to negotiate professional football contracts. Over the years, thanks to his talent in business negotiations and his good interpersonal skills, he has helped his son negotiate some youth training contracts. After hanging up the phone, Yan Yuan began packing his luggage. There were several training uniforms from Paris hanging in his closet. After hesitating for a moment, he folded them neatly and stuffed them into his suitcase. The photo frame above the bed contains a picture of the three of them. In the photo, Mr. Yan is wearing a sharp suit, Mrs. Yan is wearing an apron and has a bright smile, and he stands in the middle, holding a trophy from the Birmingham Community Youth League. He was 12 years old at the time, and this photo was taken shortly after he was signed by Birmingham City's Youth Academy. Yan Yuan picked up the photo frame and gently wiped the glass surface with his fingertips. "It's okay," he told himself softly, "this is just the beginning." That's what he said, but he was about to burst into tears. He picked up his backpack, took one last look around the dormitory where he had lived for 2 years, and then closed the door. He no longer belonged in this place. At the end of the corridor, the setting sun streamed in through the window, casting a long shadow of his alone. Management may be ruthless, but people are compassionate. The kind-hearted sister-in-law of PSG captain learned that many old teammates would be leaving this season to welcome Neymar and Mbappe, so she specially invited everyone to a farewell party tonight. Fortunately, Yan Yuan was also on the list of invitees, even though he is currently just a junior member of the team. Yan Yuan stood in the corner of the restaurant, holding a glass of orange juice, watching the lively scene before him. The Paris Saint-Germain first-team players gathered in small groups, chatting and laughing. Captain Thiago Silva, holding a wine glass, walked back and forth among the crowd, occasionally patting a teammate on the shoulder and saying a few words of encouragement. He organized the farewell dinner. After the season ends, the club will be clearing out a group of players. Whether it's for tactical adjustments or financial reasons, someone has to leave. Yan Yuan had never expected to be invited. He is just a youth team player, and he has very limited opportunities to interact with first-team players. Friendly reminder, if you can't find the book by title, try searching for the author, they might have just changed their name. Chapter 2. Isn't this a Paris Saint-Germain legend? After leaving Greater Paris, Yan Yuan stayed in a hotel in Paris for 3 days. During those 3 days, he hardly went out, spending most of his time in his room studying the system that had suddenly appeared. The system was more diverse than he had imagined, the training module could simulate any scenario, from basic passing and receiving to high-intensity competitive matches, and even simulate the defensive habits of specific players. He tried several times, each time practicing until he was exhausted in the system space, but the results were surprisingly good. Besides this, the most useful feature is skill evolution application. For example, Yan Yuan now possesses ball control attributes that are almost identical to Di Maria's. With this attribute, he can not only easily perform the complex movements that Di Maria can do. He can also gradually figure out the ball control movements and methods that suit him. In other words, once you unlock this skill, you can develop new skills on top of it. This feature is quite reasonable, since not every team has top-tier stars. The system cannot guarantee that the host can quickly complete the interaction with the star players to acquire skills, so it provides this function to give the system host a way to improve on their own. The system also gave him a very useful newcomer reward at the end, proficiency in the languages of the 5 major leagues. Yan Yuan didn't take it seriously at first, until he discovered that he could understand the Spanish news broadcast on the hotel TV without any problems, and could even read Italian fashion magazines directly. On the morning of the 4th day, my phone vibrated. It was a call from my father. "Son," Yan's father's voice sounded tired, but also excited. "There are a few trial opportunities available, take a look." "Yes, Dad, I'm listening. Please go ahead." Yan Yuan put his phone on speakerphone, placed it on the bed, and continued stretching while listening to the call. Eibar and Leganés in La Liga are both relegation-threatened teams with average squads, but they guarantee playing time. Father Yan paused for a moment. Freiburg and Hoffenheim are in the Bundesliga. Yan Yuan paused for a moment when he heard Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim? The one that finished 4th in the Bundesliga last season? Yan Yuan repeated. Yes, Yan's father said with a smile, they just qualified for the Champions League. Their head coach, Nagelsmann, is only 29 years old. He's a young coach, and I've heard he's very good at developing young players. Yan Yuan sat up straight. Of course he knew Nagelsmann. All of Europe was talking about this young coach, saying that Hoffenheim, under his leadership, was playing the most modern attacking football. Why would they choose me? Yan Yuan asked. Their scouts watched your match footage with Paris U19 and felt that your technical characteristics were suitable for their system, that you had good football IQ, and that you were worth developing. They are willing to give you a trial opportunity. Mr. Yan paused. However, the competition for the trial will be very fierce, so you need to be prepared. They are strengthening their squad this summer to play in the Champions League, and there will be many competitors on the day of the trial. Yan Yuan did not answer immediately. He walked to the window and looked at the streets of Paris in the early morning. A bus slowly drove by, its body adorned with huge posters of Mbappé and Neymar, a promotional image for Paris Saint-Germain's upcoming season. Dad, I've made up my mind. I want to go to Hoffenheim, he said. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the phone. Are you sure? Freiburg has promised more playing time, but with Hoffenheim, even if you pass the trial, you'll start as a substitute or even in the youth team, Father Yan replied. I know, Yan Yuan said, but Nagelsmann is worth the gamble. Dad replied readily, okay, then I'll contact the club to arrange a trial. After hanging up the phone, Yan Yuan let out a long sigh of relief. He walked to the mirror and looked at himself. He had a handsome and standard Asian appearance, black hair, deep-set eyes, a high nose bridge, and features that looked good at first glance and quite delicate upon closer inspection. In football terms, this face is called a superstar look. 2 hours later, a text message came from Yan's father. Hoffenheim responded quickly, the trial is scheduled for half a month later. By the way, is your German language a big problem? Yan Yuan stared at the message for 2 seconds, then suddenly realized a problem. How should he explain that he had suddenly learned German? He hesitated for a moment before replying, I speak German. I have German teammates in the Paris youth training camp, and I learned it from them. After sending the message, he himself felt that the excuse was a bit far-fetched, but his father didn't ask any more questions and just replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Yan Yuan tossed his phone onto the bed and walked to the window. The Parisian sky was azure, and the sunlight shimmered on the Seine. When he terminated his contract a few days ago, he felt like the whole world had abandoned him. Now, he suddenly has a new direction. He took a deep breath, turned around and started packing his luggage. The trial was in 2 weeks, and he had to go to Germany in advance to adapt to the venue. Yan Yuan still had his Paris Saint-Germain training uniform in his suitcase. He hesitated for a moment, then finally stuffed it into the bottom layer. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, he's destined never to wear that red, white, and blue jersey. He also didn't want to have anything to do with this team anymore. The next afternoon, as Yan Yuan dragged his suitcase out of Stuttgart airport, he saw his father standing at the exit waving to him from afar. Mr. Yan was wearing a dark blue casual suit, sunglasses, and his hair was neatly combed. He was holding a cup of coffee in his hand, looking like a businessperson on vacation. Friendly reminder, we have optimized the website to address the issue of some versions of Safari freezing on iPhones. If you still experience similar problems, please try using another browser, such as Google Chrome, or revert to the default font. Yes, the font is the cause. Please contact us and we will try to improve the situation. Chapter 3 Hoffenheim Trials. Image of the male lead who is about to participate in the audition. The day of the trial training has arrived. The Yan family father and son arrived at the trial training ground early this morning. Standing in front of the gate of the Hoffenheim training base, they looked up at the building, which was not particularly grand. He had expected to see some impressive facilities, but the venue in front of him looked even more modest than Paris Saint-Germain's youth training base. Stop looking at it. Germans value practicality and don't care about fancy things, Dad Yan patted his son on the shoulder. Upon entering the base, Yan Yuan discovered that it was much more lively than he had imagined. More than 20 young players had gathered on the playground, including blonde-haired, blue-eyed Scandinavians, dark-skinned Africans, and several Asians like him. The air was filled with conversations in various languages, including English, German, and Spanish, with occasional glimpses of Japanese or Korean. Looks like there's a lot of competition, Dad muttered to himself. But it's okay, I haven't seen anyone more handsome than you yet. Yan Yuan couldn't help but laugh out loud. All right, Dad, this is a trial, not a beauty pageant. Who says otherwise? Dad Yan said seriously. Handsome players can sell more jerseys, looks are an important part of commercial value. What Yan's father said is absolutely right. Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Beckham, these top stars are all incredibly handsome. Their jersey sales are not only related to their skills and fame, but also to their looks. To give another counterexample, if Vinicius or Enderic could play like Ronaldo, they might receive many honors, but in terms of jersey sales, the two of them combined would not be able to surpass Ronaldo. Because one of these two people has a sausage-shaped mouth, and the other looks like a sandman. Don't say that black people aren't as handsome as white people, that's not an excuse. Bellingham is black, Rodrigo is black, and Kobe Bryant in basketball is black. They are all quite handsome, even more so than many white people. Commercial value really does depend on appearance. According to the rules of the Hoffenheim club, Yan Yuan went to the locker room to pick up his trial uniform, an ordinary white training vest with his number 17 scrawled on the back in black marker. When he came out after changing his clothes, he found several people in suits standing on the sidelines, taking notes on tablets. See that? Dad nudged him with his elbow. That guy in the dark blue suit is Nagelsmann. Yan Yuan looked in the direction his father pointed. The young coach standing on the sidelines looked even younger than he did on TV. His eyes sharply scanned the players on the field, and he occasionally whispered a few words to his assistant. Nagelsmann had slightly protruding teeth, so his smile had a slightly overt feel. Dad, wasn't it just a selection of young players? Why is the head coach here too? Yan Yuan asked in a low voice. Yan's father shrugged. I heard that Hoffenheim is going to streamline their squad this time and wants to find a few young players with strong immediate impact as rotation substitutes. The Champions League qualifiers will start in August, and they don't have time to slowly develop new players. Yan Yuan nodded, his heart beating faster than usual. This trial was more important than he had imagined. It was not a regular youth training selection, but one that directly affected the Champions League squad for next season. Are you nervous? Dad Yan suddenly asked. Yan Yuan took a deep breath, a little. Come here. Dad Yan pulled him aside and placed his hands on his shoulders. Listen, son, your mother has always wanted you to go to college. She thinks playing football is not stable, but I have never thought that way. Yan Yuan was somewhat surprised by his father's sudden serious expression. Dad Yan continued. Son, my expectations for you are simple: be healthy, be happy, do what you love. Football is important, but it's not your whole life. So play freely today, don't overthink it. The worst outcome is just going back to England to help me manage the business. You definitely won't starve. Yan Yuan suddenly felt her eyes welling up with tears. She thought about how her father had put aside his business these past few days to help her with the transfer of the company, how he had arranged everything so meticulously for her, and how he was now encouraging her like this. He gave his father a tight hug. Thank you, Dad. All right, stop this pathetic nonsense. Don't wipe your snot on my suit, it's very expensive. Dad Yan was still stubborn and didn't cry, but he enjoyed his son's hug. A moment later, a staff member blew a whistle, signaling all the trial players to assemble. Yan Yuan checked his shoelaces one last time, then jogged to join the group. Nagelsmann walked up to the group, adjusted his glasses, and said, "Welcome everyone. Today's trial will consist of 3 parts, technical testing, group sparring, and live-fire exercises." His voice wasn't loud, but he enunciated each word clearly. We're not looking for superstars, but players who can immediately contribute to the first team and are worth developing. So, once the tryouts begin, please show your immediate impact. Yan Yuan noticed that after Nagelsmann said those words, the expressions of the players around him became noticeably tense. Staff began distributing vests to groups. Yan Yuan was assigned to Group B, where he was joined by a tall Nordic centre-back, a very fast African winger, and 2 South American players who looked to be quite skilled. Alright, everyone warm up for 15 minutes, the assistant coach called out, then we'll start the first test. Yan Yuan was doing stretching exercises when his gaze unconsciously drifted toward the sidelines. Nagelsmann was already seated on the makeshift observation platform, surrounded by the youth academy director, scouting director, and technical analyst. The table in front of them was covered with documents and electronic equipment, suggesting that they were holding some important military meeting. Hello, what country are you from? A player from Asia who spoke English suddenly asked. His English sounded very broken. An English citizen of Chinese descent, what about you? Yan Yuan replied. I am Korean. Are you here for a trial training too? Yan Yuan asked. Friendly reminder, the reading experience for VIP members has been optimized. Simply tap the center of the screen to bring up the menu, where you can easily navigate to Settings, Previous Page, Next Page, and Back to Top. Chapter 4 Professional Amateur Agents. At 9 o'clock the next morning, Yan Yuan and his father appeared in front of the Hoffenheim club headquarters building on time. Today, Dad wore a dark gray 3-piece suit, his tie was perfectly tied, and even his usually messy hair was neatly fixed with hair gel. Yan Yuan also wore a navy blue casual suit with a light blue shirt underneath, looking both formal and youthful. In the elevator, the father gave his son a final piece of advice: remember, all you need to do later is smile and nod. Leave all the negotiations to me. If they ask for your opinion, just say I'm listening to my agent. Yan Yuan nodded, feeling a tightness in his throat. He barely slept last night, his mind was filled with contract terms and numbers. There were already 3 people sitting in the meeting room: Sports Director Rosen, Finance Director Meyer, and Legal Advisor Schmidt. Rosen was a bald man in his 50s with small, sharp eyes. His handshake was so strong that Yan Yuan almost frowned. Rosen gestured for them to sit down. Please sit down, let's get straight to the point. Schmidt pushed a draft contract across the table. Instead of flipping through the pages, Dad took out an exquisite leather notebook and a Montblanc fountain pen from his briefcase. Mr. Yen spoke in fluent English. Before confirming the contract, I would like to understand your club's overall plan. Is Yan Yuan brought in as an immediate player, or is he a long-term development target? That was a brilliant move to turn the tables. Mr. Yen applied his business negotiation experience with remarkable ease. Rosen and Meyer exchanged a glance. This opening remark was clearly unexpected for them. Rosen answered cautiously, both. Coach Nagelsmann appreciates your son's versatility and believes he can provide rotation options in multiple positions. Father Yen nodded before opening the contract. His gaze quickly swept over the key terms: a 3-year contract, a weekly salary of €8,000, a goal bonus of €5,000 per goal, and an assist bonus of €3,000 per assist. Mr. Yan gently closed the document and said, "Excuse me for speaking frankly, but this salary level does not match Yan Yuan's trial performance. As far as I know, your team's substitute forwards earned more than €12,000 per week last season." Meyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Yan, your son has indeed performed well, but he has no professional league experience after all. This salary is already very competitive among players of the same age in the Bundesliga." Father Yan smiled slightly. "If we only look at age, that's true, but what about combat effectiveness?" He pulled out a data report from the folder. The technical statistics from yesterday's trial showed that Yan Yuan ranked first in 3 key metrics: passing success rate, shooting conversion rate, and duel success rate. Rosen tapped his fingers lightly on the table. "Data is only one aspect. Professional football also needs to consider commercial value, market appeal." The strict father keenly caught the other person's subtext. He leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Rosen is implying that Yan Yuan's commercial value is discounted because he is of Asian descent. Can I interpret this as racial discrimination?" It has to be said that Mr. Yan is really good at negotiating. He has been in business for so many years, so of course he knows how to gain a negotiating advantage. The air in the Hoffenheim meeting room seemed to freeze instantly, and Schmidt nervously adjusted his tie. "No, that's absolutely not what I meant," Rosen quickly explained. "It's just that from a purely market perspective, Asian players in the Bundesliga do indeed have lower commercial value than German or South American players." Dad took a deep breath and tapped his knuckles lightly twice on the table. Yan Yuan noticed that the veins on the back of his father's hand were slightly bulging, but his voice remained calm. "In that case, let's talk about it from another angle. Your team has just qualified for the Champions League, and you need a stable rotation lineup to compete on multiple fronts. My son is a player who can play in 3 positions, has a reasonable salary, and doesn't occupy a non-EU player's quota. How should his value be calculated?" Rosen's eyes lit up. Yan Ba had accurately hit Hoffenheim's sore spot, the pressure of squad depth brought by the Champions League. "What you said makes a valid point," Rosen's tone softened. "So, what salary do you think would be appropriate?" "Weekly wage of €12,000, goal bonus of €8,000, assist bonus of €5,000, and contract extended to 4 years, Mr. Yan recited the numbers without hesitation. Meyer, standing nearby, nearly choked on the water. This is almost the salary level of a starting player." Yan's father calmly pulled a document from the inside pocket of his suit. "This is Bournemouth's offer letter of intent for Yan Yuan, with a weekly wage of £15,000. We chose Hoffenheim purely because we value Nagelsmann's coaching ability and Champions League qualification." This letter of intent was actually made by Yan's father last night, but the Bournemouth club's logo and the sports director's signature on it looked quite realistic. Yan Yuan suppressed his surprise and lowered his head, pretending to adjust his cuffs. For the next 2 hours, the two sides engaged in a tug-of-war over every single clause. Yan's father displayed amazing negotiation skills. When the other party insisted on not raising the base salary, he demanded an increase in the bonus ratio. When the other party refused to increase the goal bonus, he proposed to add a relegation and termination clause. Whenever the two sides reached a stalemate, he would always bring up Bournemouth's generous terms at the opportune moment. When talking about the 90th minute, Rosen wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "The €5 million penalty for breach of contract and the €7,000 bonus for a goal cannot be higher. We have to protect the interests of the club." After a moment's thought, Mr. Yan said, "It's acceptable, but 2 special conditions must be added. First, the contract will be automatically renewed for another year if the number of appearances for the first team reaches the required number. Second, the salary will increase by 15% annually." Rosen and Meyer whispered a few words to each other and finally nodded in agreement. As Rosen began revising the final draft of the contract, he suddenly asked, "Mr. Yan, are you really not a professional agent? I've seen many players who have family members act as their agents, but I've never seen anyone as professional as you." Dad Yan chuckled as he put away his pen. "I just did some research beforehand, after all." He glanced at Yan Yuan and said, "This is my son's first job contract. The main terms of the final version of the contract are as follows. Contract period, 3 + 1 years, automatic renewal after reaching the number of first-team appearances stipulated in the contract. Weekly salary, €9,000, increasing by 10% annually. Goal bonus, €7,000. Assist bonus, €4,500. Penalty for breach of contract, €5 million. Relegation release clause: if Hoffenheim is relegated, Yan Yuan can release his contract for €5 million. As Yan Yuan walked out of the meeting room, he let out a long sigh of relief. "Dad, Bournemouth's offer." Father Yan winked slyly and said, "Sure. Business secret." At the corner of the corridor, Nagelsmann was leaning against the window smoking. Seeing Yan Yuan pass by, he walked over and patted the young man on the shoulder. "Welcome to Hoffenheim, kid. First team training is at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Don't be late. This season is very important." Friendly reminder: if you can't find the book by title, try searching for the author. They might have just changed their name. Chapter 5, Emotional Intelligence. At 7:20 a.m., Yan Yuan was already standing at the entrance of the locker room at the Hoffenheim training base. He deliberately arrived only 10 minutes early today, and there was a reason for that. Yan Yuan was well aware that some of his teammates would be late for the first practice of the new season. He chose to arrive only 10 minutes early today, so as not to appear too eager to please the coach, nor to embarrass the other teammates who were late. When it comes to emotional intelligence, Yan Yuan is absolutely brilliant. A little after 7:20, the first team's assistant coach walked over with the keys and visibly paused when he saw Yan Yuan. "Are you new here?" "Hello, sir, my name is Yan Yuan, and I just signed the contract recently." Yan Yuan replied in fluent German and extended his hand. The assistant coach shook hands, then nodded in sudden realization. "Ah, I remember now, the coach mentioned you." He opened the locker room door. "Come in, Yan. You can change your gear first. The holiday just ended, and the others probably won't be here for a while." Yan Yuan chose an empty wardrobe in the corner and quickly changed into her training clothes. He noticed that each locker in the locker room had a player's name and number on it: Gnabry's number 10, Wagner's number 9, and Utha's number 19. His locker number was the same as his trial number, number 17, but there was only a temporary YAN sticker on the outside of the locker, unlike the custom name tags that others had. At 7:30, the first-team player, Shan, arrived late. Serge Gnabry, on loan from Bayern Munich, yawned as he pushed open the door. He was visibly taken aback when he saw Yan Yuan. "You're a newcomer?" "Yes, Yan Yuan, I just joined yesterday," Yan Yuan replied with a smile. "I'm Gnabry. I heard you're only 17. To be chosen by the coach, I guess you must be a genius," Gnabry replied, gave Yan Yuan a polite hug, and then walked straight to his wardrobe. "The system notified me, Gnabry interaction plus 3%. Over the next 10 minutes, players came in one after another: Demirbe, Zuber, Kaderzabek. They all looked a bit relaxed, and some were even chewing sandwiches. At 7:55, when the last player, Ute, strolled in, the atmosphere in the locker room had already become noisy. Some people were discussing last night's party, while others were complaining about the intensity of the preseason games. At 8 o'clock sharp, the locker room door was suddenly pushed open, and Nagelsmann stood in the doorway, his eyes coldly scanning the entire team. He's been staking out the locker room since early this morning, just to catch anyone who's late. The noise vanished instantly, even Gnabry, who was chewing gum, froze in place. Nagelsmann's voice was soft, yet sharp as a knife. "Great, it seems that finishing fourth last season has turned you all into star players." He walked slowly into the locker room, his leather shoes making a crisp sound on the floor. Yan Yuan noticed that the coach was wearing an all-black training uniform today, which made him look particularly serious. "Gnabry, let me ask you a question," Nagelsmann suddenly called on him. "Is your Bayern Munich schedule different from ours?" Gnabry's face flushed red instantly. "Coach, that's not how it is. Don't rush to make excuses. Do you know why Bayern let you go? Because every other player at Bayern is more eager to get ahead than you are. They don't want players without fighting spirit." Nagelsmann was ruthless, but what he said was indeed correct. "And Ute, you're the last one to arrive today," Nagelsmann interrupted him, turning to another late-arriving forward. "Do you need a wheelchair to get to the training ground on time? I think you should apply to join the Paralympic Football League." Jupp lowered his head like an ostrich, and the locker room fell silent. Nagelsmann walked to the center, hands behind his back. Let me remind you all that we finished fourth last season because Leverkusen lost in the last round, not because we were that strong. To put it more bluntly, this fourth one is a gift from God, not something we can hold firmly in our own hands. He took a tablet from the assistant coach. This is the schedule for the new season. On August 19th, the first round of the Bundesliga is against Werder Bremen, and on August 23rd, the Champions League qualifier is against Liverpool. However, given your current form, I think it's questionable whether you can even beat Liverpool's youth team. Yan Yuan held his breath and listened to the coach's instructions. He noticed that Demirbay next to him had consciously straightened his back. I've heard some people think qualifying for the Champions League is something special. Nagelsmann sneered. Let me tell you, a team eliminated in the Champions League qualifiers is more embarrassing than the last-place team in the Bundesliga. Everyone in Europe will think we're on vacation. He slammed the tablet on the table with a loud thud. Now, tell me, do you want to be a team that makes history, or just a fleeting phenomenon? The locker room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Yan Yuan glanced around furtively and saw that the sleepiness on his teammates' faces had long since disappeared, replaced by varying degrees of tension and reflection. Assemble in the tactical meeting room. 5 minutes. Nagelsmann said this last sentence before turning and leaving. After the locker room door closed, the air seemed to start flowing again. Gnabry was the first to jump up and start changing his shoes, and the others followed suit. Yan Yuan noticed that no one was speaking, only the sound of rapid breathing and the rustling of clothes. Hey, newbie, Demirbay suddenly whispered to Yan Yuan, how early did you arrive? About 10 minutes, Yan Yuan replied softly. Demirbay gave him a meaningful look. Smart. Nagelsmann hates being late. Nice to meet you, Yan. My name is Demirbay. Demirbay took the initiative to extend his hand and shook hands with Yan Yuan in a friendly manner. Demirbay interaction plus 2%. 2 minutes later, the locker room was empty. Today's training mainly consisted of tactical drills and team practice. With the new season, the team has welcomed many new players, and new tactical adjustments are needed. Therefore, Nagelsmann wanted to improve everyone's understanding of tactics and their level of teamwork through today's training session. Inside the tactical room, Nagelsmann arranged the tiles on the tactical board into a 3-5-2 formation. He tapped the board lightly and said, as you can see, guys, last season we created an average of 10.3 chances per game, but our opponents have figured out our wingbacks' forward runs, especially in the last few games of last season. We had a hard time playing against them. Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, are you real, please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages. Chapter 6, The System Shop Opens. For the next 2 weeks, Yan Yuan worked like a machine that never stopped, turning the training ground into his home. Every morning at 6 o'clock, when the Hoffenheim training base is still shrouded in a thin mist, his figure has already appeared on the empty field. Early in the morning, he practiced the change of direction technique that Nagelsmann emphasized over and over again, pushing lightly with the outside of his right foot and stopping abruptly with the inside of his left foot, his body weight shifting as smoothly as mercury. Occasionally, he also practices Jenga ball control, a technique that can improve ball control with the inside and outside of both feet. These are basic ball control training exercises. At first, his teammates only occasionally glimpsed him practicing extra, thinking it was just a fleeting enthusiasm from a newcomer. But soon they discovered that Yan Yuan's training intensity far exceeded their expectations. After the regular training session ended, while everyone else had finished showering and was about to leave, Yan Yuan took a quick shower, changed into another set of training clothes, and continued to practice shooting on the field. He repeatedly fired shots at the corner of the goal until the goalkeeping coach had to remind him. Hey kid, if you keep practicing like that, you'll break through the net. Nagelsmann noticed Yan Yuan's unusual behavior. After a tactical analysis class, he stayed behind to observe Yan Yuan's extra training. Yan Yuan arranged the training cones into complex routes to simulate various defensive pressures that might be encountered in a match. He would suddenly stop and change direction, or suddenly accelerate. Every move he made carried the urgency of real combat. Even more surprisingly, he even took out his tactical notes during training breaks and repeatedly rehearsed his running routes by comparing them with his position on the field. This is more like sports IQ training. Kid, are you preparing for the Champions League final? Nagelsmann finally couldn't help but step forward and ask, half-jokingly. Yan Yuan wiped the sweat from his forehead, his breathing still not completely steady. Coach, I just want to make sure I don't drag the team down in the friendly match. Holding everyone back. Nagelsmann raised an eyebrow. Yan, if I remember correctly, you scored 4 goals and provided 3 assists in the last group match. Is that what you call dragging the team down? Yan Yuan did not relax because of the coach's praise. Instead, he said seriously, but I still have 3 passing errors and 2 defensive positioning errors. If this were a formal game, these mistakes might cause the team to lose points. Nagelsmann was silent for a few seconds, then his gaze became serious. He has seen too many gifted young players, but few are as harsh on their own mistakes as Yan Yuan. Most talented players are actually more willing to show off their highlights than to dwell on their mistakes. Do you know what I admire most about you? Nagelsmann suddenly asked. Yan Yuan shook his head. It's not your technique, nor your football IQ, Nagelsmann said. It's your attitude. Many South American players are more talented than you, but they will never train like you. They believe more in their improvisation rather than honing their skills day after day. Yan Yuan lowered his head slightly, his voice soft but firm. Coach, I am of Chinese descent. My father often tells me, 1 minute on stage requires 10 years of practice off stage. I think that in top leagues, talent is just a ticket to the game, the final victory is still won through hard work. Nagelsmann nodded thoughtfully. He recalled the fleeting geniuses he had encountered during his coaching career. Most of them ultimately succumbed to laziness or complacency, but this Chinese-American teenager seemed to be born with an almost obsessive gene for diligence. This is the diligence and hard work ingrained in the Chinese people, which Yan Yuan inherited from his parents. You can train, but you must take care of your body. Nagelsmann's tone became serious. I don't want to receive a report from the team doctor the night before a friendly match saying that I have strained a muscle due to overtraining. Yan Yuan smiled and said, Don't worry, coach. I do recovery training every day, and I'm much stronger than I look. In fact, thanks to daily training and systematic extra practice, Yan Yuan's physical reserves are truly astonishing. In the subsequent team fitness test, his 12-minute run time ranked 3rd in the team, only behind 2 dedicated defensive midfielders. Even more astonishingly, his shuttle run record broke the club's U23 team record. Strength and conditioning coach Schmidt looked at the data sheet in his hand and shook his head in disbelief. This guy's lung capacity is 1.5 times that of a normal person. The teammates' initial surprise turned into admiration. After an extra training session, Gnabry stayed behind to practice passing and cutting with Yan Yuan. Captain Voigt even adjusted his extra training time so that he could study defensive positioning with Yan Yuan. You remind me of Kroos when he was young, Voigt said to Yan Yuan after a training session. You are just as calm as him, just as insane. This is extremely high praise, but Yan Yuan was not satisfied with it. In the tactical room outside the training ground, he often studied his opponent's videos alone. He took detailed notes on Genoa's defensive weaknesses and Bologna's midfield vulnerabilities. Once, the assistant coach pushed open the door and found Yan Yuan drawing complex running routes on the whiteboard, with various tactical terms written densely next to him. Are you preparing for the World Cup? The assistant coach asked, half-jokingly. Yan Yuan didn't even look up. No, sir, I just don't want to waste the opportunity the coach gave me. This almost obsessive preparation finally paid off in the second intra-team scrimmage. After dribbling past 3 defenders on the right wing, Yan Yuan sent the ball into the corner with a low slam. After scoring, he didn't celebrate. Instead, he immediately ran back to midfield and signaled to his teammates to quickly reorganize the defense. This professional attitude made Nagelsmann on the sidelines nod in approval. There's no point in celebrating a goal scored on the training field. Yan Yuan wouldn't do anything meaningless. After training, Nagelsmann called Yan Yuan back again. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the two of them, casting long shadows. Kid, tell me the truth, Nagelsmann said, looking directly into Yan Yuan's eyes. Why are you working so hard? With your talent, you don't actually need to work this hard to get playing time. Yan Yuan remained silent for a moment, then looked beyond the training ground into the distance. Coach, do you know how difficult it is for an Asian player, especially a player of Chinese descent, to gain a foothold in Europe. We Chinese players don't get recognized as easily as South American players, nor do we have the comprehensive and high-end youth training system that European players have. I have to work harder than everyone else to prove that I deserve to be here. He thought for a moment, then continued, moreover, I don't want to just be the not bad player you mentioned, I want to be the best. Nagelsmann remained silent for a long time. Finally, he patted Yan Yuan on the shoulder. Next week in Genoa, I'll make sure you play the full match. Don't let me down. Friendly reminder, if you can't find the book by title, try searching for the author, they might have just changed their name. Chapter 7 Yan Yuan's first friendly match. The training days passed quickly, and on Saturday night, at Hoffenheim's home stadium, the Rhein-Neckar Arena. At 6 p.m., an hour and a half before the match was scheduled to begin, the Hoffenheim locker room was already getting lively. Yan Yuan sat in his seat, head down, tying his shoelaces, his fingers slightly clenched. This was his first time representing the first team. Although it was just a friendly match, the noise of fans entering the stadium could already be heard outside the stadium. Gnabry walked over, plopped down in the chair next to him, and grinned, Hey, Yan, don't look so serious, relax. He reached out and patted Yan Yuan on the shoulder. Weren't you pretty good during training? What's wrong? Are you scared by our fans? Yan Yuan looked up and forced a smile, It's alright, it's just a bit new. Fresh. Gnabry laughed. When you hear the fans chanting your name, that's when it will be fresh. He leaned closer and lowered his voice, Let me tell you a secret, when I first played for Arsenal, I almost collapsed in the players' tunnel. Yan Yuan raised an eyebrow, Really? Why would I lie to you? Gnabry shrugged. Later I realized that as long as I focused my attention on the ball, everything else was just noise. The locker room door was pushed open, and Nagelsmann walked in. He was dressed in a sharp suit, holding a tactical board in his hand, his gaze sweeping over each player before finally settling on Yan Yuan. Yan, he said calmly as he walked over, come out with me for a moment. Yan Yuan followed the coach out of the locker room and into the quiet corridor. Nagelsmann leaned against the wall, straightened his jersey, and asked, Are you nervous? A little, Yan Yuan answered honestly, but mostly I'm excited. Nagelsmann nodded, Very good, excitement is better than numbness. Listen, although I have high expectations for you, I don't need you to become a hero today, nor do I need you to prove anything anytime soon. Don't put too much pressure on yourself in this match. Just perform as you do in training, and that will be enough. Yan Yuan took a deep breath, I will, coach. Remember our tactics, Nagelsmann continued. You need to cut inside on the right wing to create space for Kaderzabek to make forward runs. Genoa's left back isn't very fast, so you can take advantage of that. Clear. Nagelsmann patted him on the shoulder, All right, go back and enjoy the game. Back in the locker room, the teammates had already changed into their jerseys and were making their final preparations. Yan Yuan put on his number 17 jersey. This number isn't particularly important in Hoffenheim, nor does it have any special meaning or history, but Yan Yuan still likes it because he's 17 years old. Captain Voigt walked over, patted the cabinet, and said, Are you all ready, ladies? We're about to receive our guests. Don't worry, Captain, I'll make the Italians tremble with pleasure, Schultz replied with a savory remark. Voigt's words immediately livened up the atmosphere, and everyone started chatting and laughing. The stadium loudspeaker began broadcasting the entry instructions, and the atmosphere in the locker room instantly became serious. Nagelsmann stood in the center of the locker room, his voice calm and steady, giving his final instructions, Remember our tactics, control the tempo, patiently look for opportunities. Genoa likes to press high up the pitch, but their defense is slow to turn, which is our weakness. The players formed a circle, and Voigt held out his hand, Hoffenheim. Go for it, everyone shouted in unison. As Yan Yuan stepped out of the players' tunnel, he was instantly overwhelmed by a cacophony of noise. The lights at the Rhein-Neckar Arena were dazzling and bright, and the stands were already mostly filled with spectators. Although it was just a friendly match, Hoffenheim fans were still very enthusiastic. Who is number 17? A fan asked, pointing at Yan Yuan. A newcomer, I've never seen him before. Asian face? Japanese or Korean? No, I just checked. It seems he's of Chinese descent, of English nationality, and transferred from Paris Saint-Germain's youth academy. Yan Yuan pretended not to hear the discussion and followed his teammates to the bench. As is customary, the starting players should line up on the sidelines and wait for the referee's signal. The Genoa players were already standing on the opposite side. Yan Yuan glanced around and recognized several familiar faces from Serie A: Perrin, Rossi, Lazovic. Their expressions were relaxed, clearly not taking this friendly match too seriously. The referee blew his whistle, signaling the players to enter the field. Yan Yuan took a deep breath and stepped onto the grass. The match is about to begin. The referee's whistle shattered the noise of the Rhein-Neckar arena, the ball was gently tapped, and the match officially began. Yan Yuan stood on the right wing, his hands supporting his knees, his back slightly hunched, his eyes fixed on the battle in the midfield. In the first 25 minutes, Nagelsmann's tactical setup was very clear, probing pressure, looking for gaps in the flanks of Genoa's three-man defense. Grilic plays as a defensive midfielder to distribute possession, while Amiri frequently pushes forward to find passing options between the opponent's midfield and defense. Genoa's defensive formation was compact, but Yan Yuan quickly discovered the problem. Their left wing-back Lazovic liked to push forward, while their left centre-back Rossitini was slow to turn. Friendly reminder: login users can permanently save their bookshelf data across devices. We recommend that you log in to use this feature. Chapter 8: This child is good in every way, except he doesn't know how to celebrate. When the whistle blew in the second half, the Genoa players' eyes clearly changed. Like an enraged swarm of bees, they pounced on the enemy from the very beginning, and just as Nagelsmann had predicted, Genoa began to bombard the flanks relentlessly. In the 48th minute, Veloso delivered a curved cross from the right wing, and Pandev ghostfully headed the ball past Voigt. Bang! Hoffenheim goalkeeper Kober made a diving save, tipping the ball over the crossbar with one hand, causing the entire Rhein-Neckar arena to gasp in shock. Pay attention to two things. Both of you, get your attention. Nagelsmann roared from the sidelines, gesturing with his hands in a contracting motion. The two defensive midfielders, Grilic and Amiri, immediately dropped back, blocking the front of the penalty area like two gates. In the 51st minute, Genoa came back strong. Lazovic unleashed a sudden shot from outside the box, but Kober once again made a miraculous save, punching the ball out of danger with a single punch. Well done. Yan Yuan gave Kober a thumbs up, then turned around and saw Veloso organizing a new attack on the other side. This time Genoa learned their lesson. Veloso faked a pass and then suddenly delivered a low, diagonal through ball. Forward Pandev arrived just in time. 1-2. Genoa scored again. Genoa players celebrated wildly, while Hoffenheim's defense looked at each other blankly. Nagelsmann was a little irritable. He had clearly emphasized this to his team, but he quickly regained his composure and shouted into the stadium. Stick to the plan. Don't panic. We still have the advantage. Yan Yuan wiped away his sweat and found that his breathing was becoming heavy. The pace of the actual competition was more than twice as fast as that of training. Genoa's counterattack came wave after wave, and it was then that he truly began to understand what it felt like to be a professional player. In the 58th minute, it was Kobel again who made a world-class save to block Rossi's long-range shot. Change players. In the 61st minute, Nagelsmann played his first card, replacing Gnabry with Hack. Gnabry already had a wealth of professional experience, so the rest of the time was given to the newcomer Hack. This fresh left winger created a threat as soon as he came on. His speed kept Genoa's right-back Barika running around, and Nagelsmann's substitution was perfectly justified. Yan Yuan's positioning also began to change. He no longer clung to the wing but frequently dropped back to the midfield to receive passes. In the 67th minute, he dropped back to the center circle to receive a pass from Grilic, executed a beautiful Marseille turn to get past Veloso, and then delivered a precise long pass to Hack, but unfortunately the latter's shot went high. Beautiful. That's the kind of performance you should be giving. Nagelsmann unusually pumped his fist in approval. The Hoffenheim fans in the stands gradually regained their voices. They started singing their team song, and every time Yan Yuan touched the ball, there would be sporadic shouts of, Yen! Yen! In the 83rd minute, the magic moment arrived. Yan Yuan received a pass from Amiri near the center line on the right wing. Genoa's Lazovic immediately closed in, but Yan Yuan twisted his right foot and gently pushed with the outside of his left foot, instantly getting past the first defender. The stand started to stir. The second player to pounce was Genoa midfielder Bertolacci. Yan Yuan gently flicked the ball with his right foot, and the ball, less than 20 centimeters off the ground, passed under Bertolacci's crotch in the blink of an eye. The whole movement was fluid and graceful, as if the ball was glued to his feet. My God! What am I seeing? He's not Brazilian, nor Argentinian, he's an Englishman of Chinese descent. It's really rare to see an Asian player control the ball like that, it's so gorgeous. The commentator's voice suddenly rose. Genoa's last line of defense is Spoli. The experienced centre-back lowered his centre of gravity, preparing to block. Yan Yuan made a pushing motion with his right foot, but at the moment of contact, he gently flicked the ball with the instep of his foot, sending it arcing over Spoli's head. At the same time, Yan Yuan flashed past from the other side like lightning. The ball and the player have passed each other. A crime. Absolutely a crime. This dribble was full of provocation. Let's wait for this kid, his performance isn't over yet. The commentator almost cracked his voice. The stadium erupted in cheers, with some Hoffenheim fans even standing up in excitement. Not only the fans, but also the players on the bench stood up. Mabry was bewildered by Yan Yuan's performance. Is this still the good buddy I know? Yan Yuan strode quickly, caught up with the falling ball, and before it hit the ground, he leaned his body sharply to the side and, before completely losing his balance, unleashed a powerful volley. Whoosh! The ball shot like a cannonball into the far corner. 3-1. The Rhein-Neckar arena exploded instantly. 17-year-old Yan. A young player from the Paris Saint-Germain Youth Academy. 2 goals in his debut, what a perfect performance, let's cheer for this kid. The German commentator shouted wildly. Hoffenheim fans jumped wildly, some even smashing beer bottles. This time, Yan Yuan finally stopped holding back and rushed towards the corner flag area, performing a passionate sliding knee slide. Thankfully the grass was watered beforehand, otherwise he would definitely have gotten his knee stuck and fallen. Great job, kid. Teammate Schultz was the first to pounce on him and pin him down. Yan, you're a genius. Amiri shouted, ruffling his hair. Nagelsmann on the sideline smiled like a child, then turned and gave his assistant coach a big hug. He must be the happiest person in the room right now. A promising young star has emerged, which is much more gratifying for a coach like him who loves to develop young talent than signing an already established superstar. All the players on the bench rushed to the sidelines, some even waving water bottles like champagne. The Genoa players' eyes were gradually losing focus. They tried to launch a comeback in the final moments, but in the 87th minute, Hübner made a textbook sliding tackle to break Genoa striker André's one-on-one shot out of bounds. When the final whistle blew, the score was 3-1. Yan Yuan was surrounded by his teammates, and Voigt even carried him on his shoulders. The cheers from the stands were like a thunderstorm, lasting and unending, with many fans chanting MVP. MVP. Although it was just a friendly match, everyone still enjoyed the victory, and Yan Yuan and the Hoffenheim players developed a deeper understanding of each other. While everyone was chatting happily, Nagelsmann walked over, revealing a rare, radiant smile. Friendly reminder, the internal messages function for logged-in users has been optimized. We can receive and reply to your messages in a timely manner. Please check the internal messages page in the user center. Chapter 9 New nickname, Robot Yan Yuan. The day after Hoffenheim's stunning debut in a friendly match, their training ground was much busier than usual. Several cameras were set up outside the stadium, and local Hoffenheim reporters secretly used telephoto lenses to try to capture news about yesterday's 17-year-old rising star. To be precise, it's an embarrassing story. They naturally felt that a 17-year-old boy becoming MVP in his first game would definitely make a fool of himself in training the next day, and such news material would definitely sell like hotcakes. However, when they actually saw Yan Yuan, they were somewhat dazed. This young man, who was toying with his opponents on the court yesterday, is now sitting alone on the sidelines, looking down at his tablet, pausing, replaying, and taking notes on the screen from time to time, while also writing and drawing with paper and pen. The reporters failed to capture the news they wanted and were eventually kicked out by the security guard. Nagelsmann stood with his hands in his pockets by the office window, watching this scene from afar. He originally thought that Yan Yuan would walk into the training field today with a bit of smug excitement, like most young players, and perhaps be teased by his teammates as the rising star has arrived. But the reality was quite the opposite. Yan Yuan arrived even earlier than usual, and immediately pulled up yesterday's game video, starting to analyze his positioning and decisions frame by frame. This kid, Nagelsmann muttered to himself, a smile unconsciously creeping onto his lips. The assistant coach pushed open the door and handed over a cup of coffee. I heard Yan Yuan arrived at 6:30 today. The security guard said it wasn't even fully light when he entered. He definitely didn't sleep much last night. Nagelsmann took the coffee, his gaze still fixed on the window. It was past 9 o'clock when the post-match interview ended, and he was still so energetic. The teaching assistant next to him lowered his voice and said, "What's even more outrageous is that the coach just asked me for the tactical analysis reports of Bologna's 3 matches in the next friendly, saying he wanted to study their central defenders' defensive habits." Nagelsmann raised an eyebrow and finally couldn't help but laugh. This doesn't look like a rookie who just made his debut. He looks more like a 30-year-old veteran. Once the training officially began, Yan Yuan's performance was even more surprising. After the regular warm-up, instead of rushing to show off his skills like other young players, he took the initiative to find Captain Voigt and asked himself if his positioning during the defensive counter-attack was reasonable. Voigt paused for a moment, then laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "My God, if I remember correctly, you had 2 goals and 1 assist yesterday, and now you're asking me about defense?" Yan Yuan said seriously. "Captain, I know very well that the second goal had a lot of luck involved. And if my run on that counter-attack had been a little earlier, I might have created a 4th crucial chance, but unfortunately I didn't." These words were overheard by Gnabry, who happened to be passing by. The Bayern loanee stared wide-eyed and turned to Amiri beside him, muttering, "Is this kid possessed by the spirit of some professional player? When I was 17, after playing a game like this, all I could think about was, I'm awesome, but he's acting like nothing happened." Amiri shrugged. "What's so special about that? Yan Gang just practiced long passes for an extra half hour, and now he's going to practice off-the-ball movement. Look at his consistent training schedule, he's like a robot." And so, the nickname, Robot, spread within the team. During lunchtime, Yan Yuan sat in a corner with his plate, eating while watching Bundesliga match highlights on his phone. Nagelsmann deliberately sat down opposite him with his coffee, and casually asked, "How was it, Yan? How did it go after your debut?" Yan Yuan raised his head, his eyes calmer than a child's. "Coach, the pace of a top-tier professional team is indeed much faster than in training, especially the decision-making time during offensive and defensive transitions. I still need to adapt. By the way, Coach, I just wanted to ask you something." He put down his knife and fork, quickly pulled up a video on his phone. He had originally planned to ask this question later that afternoon, but now that the coach was there, he asked it directly. "It's this part. Do you think it would have been more reasonable for me to pass the ball to the wing instead of making a through pass during this counterattack?" Nagelsmann almost choked on his coffee. He stared at the frozen moment on the screen, which was Yan Yuan's brilliant pass. Most players are immersed in joy when recalling their highlights, but this young man calmly dissects his own surgical pass, like a surgeon. Theoretically, splitting the sides is indeed more stable. Nagelsmann put down his coffee cup, his tone unconsciously becoming like a teacher lecturing a student. "But at that time you caught the opponent's defensive midfielder's shift in center of gravity. This kind of intuition is rare. Sometimes, the difference between a genius and an ordinary player is whether or not they dare to gamble on that 0.1 second opportunity." Yan Yuan nodded thoughtfully, then suddenly took out a notebook from his backpack and scribbled a few notes. Nagelsmann glanced at the densely packed tactical diagrams and time markings in the notebook and finally couldn't help but ask, "Yan, how much time do you spend studying these every day?" It should be about 4 hours, because my game reading ability is still far from good enough. Improving that is not easy at all, much harder than improving my ball skills." Yan Yuan looked up to answer the coach's question, then continued to take notes, the pen still scratching on the paper. 4 hours later, these words made Nagelsmann's pupils shrink slightly. He recalled the days when he was 21 and had just become the coach of the Munich 1860 youth team, when he was known in the media as the data maniac. But compared to the boy in front of him, he himself back then didn't seem to be much stronger. Could it be that this kid also wants to be a coach? During the afternoon's tactical drills, the terrifying nature of the robot, Yan Yuan, was fully revealed. When Nagelsmann finished setting up a complex tactic combining the wings and the center, most of the players were still figuring out the running routes. Yan Yuan noticed a new problem and raised his hand to ask, "Coach, if the opponent's right back uses man marking, should I actively move to the wing to draw away the defender and create space for Gnabry to cut inside? When I train with Gnabry and play together on the field, I sometimes feel that doing this would be more efficient." The locker room suddenly fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the youngest face, even Captain Voigt looked like he'd seen a ghost. This isn't a low-level, ordinary question, it's definitely not the kind of question that the pretentious guy in class would ask just to show off. This level of tactical understanding is usually only possessed by professional players who have played in the Bundesliga for many years. Nagelsmann's lips twitched, he suddenly realized that he might have picked up the rarest species in the world of football. A monster that possesses both top-tier talent and top-tier professional attitude. After training, Yan Yuan stayed until the very end, as usual. Friendly reminder, if you can't find the book by title, try searching for the author, they might have just changed their name. Chapter 10 Battle of Bologna. 4 days later, Bologna's home stadium, Dallara Stadium, looked particularly solemn in the afternoon sun. This century-old stadium isn't particularly grand, but the layers of red and blue seats surrounding the neatly trimmed turf exude a classic Italian football atmosphere. Fans were gradually gathering in the stands, holding up red and blue scarves in 2s and 3s. The air was filled with the sounds of Italian conversation and laughter, occasionally interspersed with a few jokes about the away team. Today, a friendly match between Bologna and Hoffenheim will be held here. Yan Yuan followed his teammates off the bus and stepped onto this unfamiliar land. This was his first time in Italy. The August sun in Italy is much stronger than in Germany because of the Mediterranean climate. Although it is intense, the dry wind feels more comfortable on the skin than the humid summer in Hoffenheim. He took a deep breath, a faint aroma of coffee wafting into his nostrils. Temporary coffee stalls outside the stadium were brewing espresso, and several locals wearing Bologna jerseys stood nearby, sipping their small coffee cups while observing the Hoffenheim players. "First time in Italy, huh?" Gnabry patted Yan Yuan on the shoulder and grinned. "Their fans are way crazier than those in the Bundesliga. Don't get scared later." Yan Yuan nodded, his gaze sweeping over the graffiti on the outer wall of the stadium. It was the portrait of Bologna's legendary stars, their images outlined in vibrant colors, their eyes seemingly watching over everyone who stepped into the stadium. He suddenly felt a slight tightness in his chest, not tension, but a strange excitement. The feeling of playing abroad is indeed different, especially stepping onto the football mecca of Italy. Even a friendly match makes him quite excited. After a day of rest, the competition is about to begin, and everyone has gathered in the locker room. Nagelsmann stood before the tactical board, a marker in his hand, and only spoke after everyone was seated. "Listen up, guys, this is the final real test before the new season starts. Don't treat it like a regular warm-up game. This is a test of the results of our pre-season training, and I hope you all take it seriously." His voice wasn't loud, but every word was clearly enunciated. Bologna's midfielders like to control the tempo, but their defense is slow to turn. We need to use high pressing to disrupt their rhythm, and once we win the ball, we should immediately switch to attack. Yan Yuan sat in his seat, listening to the coach's tactical instructions while tightly wrapping his ankle with bandages. He would still be starting today. He could feel the atmosphere in the locker room gradually becoming tense, and his teammates' breathing had become much lighter. Demirbe was whispering something to Rupp in the front row, while goalkeeper Kober quietly checked his gloves, his eyes focused as if he could already see the opponent's shooting trajectory. Nagelsmann suddenly called his name. Their left back is not very fast, but he likes to press high. When you are matched up against him, you can make more use of cutting inside and switching positions with Gnabry. Yan Yuan looked up, met the coach's gaze, and gave a brief reply, "Understood, coach." Amiri chuckled softly beside him, "Don't worry, kid, their right flank defense is even worse. I'll be there to support you anytime." A few low laughs suddenly rang out in the locker room, and the tense atmosphere eased slightly. Nagelsmann didn't stop them, but waited for the laughter to subside before continuing, "Remember, don't think of yourselves as tourists. Bologna will treat this match as their final training session before the start of Serie A, and their intensity will not be low. He paused, his gaze sweeping over everyone, so, cherish every minute, and play like it's a real match. Yan Yuan could feel his heartbeat quickening. He glanced to the other side of the locker room, where Gnabry was neatly stuffing shin guards into his socks. Veteran Hubner leaned against the wardrobe with his eyes closed, as if rehearsing his defensive positioning in his mind. Everyone was preparing in their own way, while the faint chants of the home fans outside reminded them that this was not Hoffenheim, but someone else's territory. The staff knocked on the door and reminded them in heavily accented Italian English that it was time to come out and warm up. Yan Yuan stood up and followed his teammates toward the passage. The corridor was dimly lit, and the framed photos on the walls depicted glorious moments in Bologna's history, celebrations, raised trophies, and the jubilation of fans in black and white photographs. At the end of the passage, a bright ray of sunlight streamed in from the exit, accompanied by increasingly clear shouts from the fans. Gnabry walked ahead, then suddenly turned back and winked at Yan Yuan. "Are you ready? The Italians have a very enthusiastic welcome." "Of course, I've been ready for a long time." Yan Yuan smiled, bumped fists with Gnabry, and unconsciously quickened his pace. He could feel his blood heating up, and his muscles seemed to be awakened, filled with a restless energy. The light at the end of the tunnel grew closer, and when he finally stepped onto the court, the roar that greeted him made him instantly understand Gnabry's meaning. A deafening snort erupted from the stands, along with cheers from the Bologna home fans. "We are one." Bologna sent shivers down the spines of the world. "Crush the Bundesliga." The slogan sounds arrogant, but it is indeed one of their commonly used slogans. Today, it wasn't just Bologna fans who were present, many Genoa fans, who had recently been defeated by Hoffenheim, also came along, hoping to see Hoffenheim suffer a defeat as well. Italian football may lack the financial appeal, but it never lacks the passion of its fans. The whistle blew to start the first half across the Dallara Stadium. War broke out. As soon as the Hoffenheim players kicked off, they surged towards Bologna's half like arrows released from a bow, executing the high-pressing tactics that coach Narcero had deployed before the match. Yan Yuan moved quickly down the right flank, his eyes always locked on Bologna's key defensive midfielder, Nagy, the Hungarian player with a short buzz cut who was trying to receive a short pass from the goalkeeper. "Guys, press them down, let them feel the pressure." Nagelsmann, with his hands in his trouser pockets, suddenly leaned forward and roared from the sidelines. His voice wasn't loud in the noisy stadium, but the Hoffenheim players on the field had already received the coach's signal. Hoffenheim's Oaks and Rupp both rushed towards Nagy, while Yan Yuan, looking for an opening on the right wing, was subtly cutting off his back pass to the fullback, a clever decision. Hoffenheim's teammates are used to Yan's positioning, this kid always makes them feel at ease. In his haste, Najib could only clear the ball with a long kick, but it flew crookedly toward midfield and was easily intercepted by Grilic. Hoffenheim's first press created a threat. "Great job. You executed it very well." Nagelsmann clapped on the sidelines while having his assistant coach take notes. "Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, 'Are you real?' please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages." Chapter 11 Gnabry's Side Lane Skills. When the whistle blew to start the second half, the Bologna players' eyes clearly changed. They no longer organized their attacks methodically as they had in the first half, but instead displayed a fierce determination driven to the brink of defeat. The Italian players still showed great fighting spirit on the field. Yan Yuan could feel that the opposing defenders were marking him much tighter. Every time he got the ball, Di Maio would close in and use his body to block his movement. "Watch out. They're bringing on Verdi. This is a sign that they're strengthening their midfield." Nagelsmann shouted from the sidelines, keenly noticing the Bologna coach preparing a substitution in the warm-up area. Sure enough, in the 60th minute, Bologna brought on their star attacking midfielder Verdi in an attempt to strengthen control of the midfield. Nagelsmann reacted immediately. He walked to the sidelines, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and made a tightening gesture, which was the signal for the 5-4-1 formation change. Upon seeing this, Hoffenheim's captain, Voigt, raised his arm to give a signal, and the formation on the field immediately tightened up. The two defensive midfielders, Grilic and Rupp, dropped even deeper, acting like two moving walls to protect the front of the penalty area. Keep the formation compact and don't give them any space. Nagelsmann's voice cut through the noise of the stadium. Yan Yuan also dropped deeper on the right wing, ready to help defend at any time. But there are always unexpected events on the football field. In the 75th minute, Bologna won a corner kick. Verdi's cross accurately found the top of centre-back Hellander's head. Kober couldn't block the corner kick, and the goal was a bit tricky. 2-1, Bologna scores, narrowing the score gap. Nagelsmann kicked the turf hard, but quickly regained his composure. This goal wasn't a tactical error. "Keep going according to plan," he shouted to the field, while making a downward hand gesture to signal the players to stay calm. Yan Yuan wiped his sweat and glanced at the electronic display screen on the sidelines. There were still 15 minutes left. He noticed that Bologna's two fullbacks were frequently pushing forward, leaving large gaps in the backfield, and Yan Yuan began to think about how to break the deadlock. The opportunity will come in the 80th minute. Goalkeeper Koble launched a long goal kick, the ball crossing the midfield and heading directly towards Yan Yuan's right flank, indicating Koble's intention to trust Yan Yuan. Yan Yuan judged the landing point before the ball hit the ground. He gently cushioned the ball with his chest, and the ball obediently landed half a meter in front of him. This was a wise move, as it both mitigated the impact of the long pass and bought time for the next action. Bologna's De Maio immediately rushed forward, but Yan Yuan gently flicked the ball with the outside of his right foot, sending it passing under the opponent's groin. At the same time, he took a quick step and overtook the ball from the outside. His ball control was virtually flawless, the ball was like a toy under his feet, always going precisely where it should go. "Kid, that's a genius move." Nagelsmann couldn't help but shout from the sidelines, and his assistant coach next to him had also stood up. Yan Yuan continued his rapid advance with the ball, and Najib came to cover from the side. Yan Yuan's teammates were gesturing to him, indicating that if he couldn't handle the ball, he should pass it to him. After looking around, Yan Yuan determined that the situation was not suitable for passing the ball. He had dribbled too deep and was surrounded by people. The only decision he could make was to continue to break through. Just as Najib and Yan Yuan were about to make contact, Yan Yuan suddenly stopped and pulled the ball back with his right foot, causing Najib's sliding tackle to miss. Before the other party could even get up, Yan Yuan had already gently poked the ball between Najib's legs with the toe of his left foot. "This kid knows how to give the ball the orders." Demirbay couldn't help but exclaim, as his teammates on the field continued to box out Yan Yuan and watch his performance. "Oh my God, look at number 17. Suddenly, a chorus of exclamations erupted from the Bologna fans in the stands. Bologna's centre-back Maeda had to abandon his own position and rush over as well. Yan Yuan caught a glimpse of his teammate's movement and made a bold decision. He pretended to pass the ball with his right foot, but at the moment of contact, he twisted his ankle, and the ball changed direction in an unexpected way, rolling past the outside of Maeda's supporting foot. At the same time, Yan Yuan took a quick step and went around to the other side, completing this amazing, crotch-piercing plus ball-passing, double attack. My God! Is he about to explode again? Nagelsmann's mouth dropped open. He even forgot to give instructions and was completely stunned by Yan Yuan's performance. The last defender, Hellander, panicked and blindly shoved the ball. Yan Yuan jumped lightly and simultaneously flicked the ball with the outside of his right foot, sending it obediently rolling towards the penalty area. Facing the onrushing goalkeeper, Yan Yuan calmly chose to shoot low into the near corner. 3-1. Hoffenheim takes the lead again. This kid is definitely a superstar prospect. Nagelsmann shouted to the substitutes, waving his arms excitedly. Did you see that? That whole series of dribbles, he made the judgment. This time, Yan Yuan didn't celebrate wildly. He just smiled and pointed to goalkeeper Koble, who had provided the assist, and Koble gave Yan Yuan a thumbs up. This gesture earned Nagelsmann's approval once again. After such a brilliant individual performance, he still thought of the team. This young man not only has amazing football IQ, but also amazing emotional intelligence. As the match entered stoppage time, the Bologna players were clearly losing their stamina. Kaderzabek seized the opportunity to overlap from the right flank, and Yan Yuan, understanding perfectly, moved inward to create space for him. The Czech fullback's cross flew towards the penalty area with a strong spin. Logically, this ball should have been headed away. But Yan Yuan made an unexpected decision. He turned to the side to let the ball pass, and just as the ball was about to hit the ground, he gently flicked it with the instep of his right foot. Cavani's shooting technique was enough to send the ball in a beautiful arc, past the goalkeeper's fingertips, and into the top right corner of the goal. 4-1. Nagelsmann jumped up this time, turned to the stands and made an incredulous gesture, his smile impossible to hide. "Coach, did this kid take some steroids before the game today?" the assistant coach joked. Friendly reminder, if you can't find the book by title, try searching for the author, they might have just changed their name. Chapter 12 performed very well, both on the sports field and in the classroom. At 6:50 a.m., the grass at Hoffenheim's training ground was still wet with dew. Yan Yuan arrived 10 minutes early today and stood on the sidelines doing warm-up exercises, his breath condensing into mist in the cold air. He kept recalling the "one dragon on the wing" skill tips that the system had given him last night, as well as Gnabry's amazing breakthroughs during the game. "You're here pretty early." A familiar voice came from behind. Yan Yuan turned around and saw Gnabry walking over in his training clothes, holding 2 bottles of sports drinks. "Gnabry was here pretty early today too. I didn't want to keep you waiting." Yan Yuan took the drink, unscrewed the cap, and took a sip. Gnabry grinned. "By the way, Yan, does the coach know about this?" Yan Yuan nodded. "I'll go find him and explain the situation in a bit." He glanced at his watch. Now is the perfect time to go. Nagelsmann's office lights were already on. When Yan Yuan knocked and entered, the young marshal was writing and drawing on his tactical board. After hearing the purpose of his visit, he put down his marker and crossed his hands on the table. "You're planning to learn how to break through on the wings from Gnabry?" Nagelsmann raised an eyebrow. Not a bad idea, but," he stood up and walked to the window, looking at the sky that was beginning to lighten. "This ability cannot be mastered simply by technique, it requires a corresponding explosive power and speed foundation. Gnabry's breakthrough relied on his physical qualities, and you may not be able to adapt to it in the short term." Yan Yuan stood ramrod straight. "Coach, I know this is difficult, but I want to try." Nagelsmann turned around, his gaze lingering on Yan Yuan for a few seconds before he suddenly smiled. "All right, I approve. However," he held up one finger, "if you don't see significant improvement within a week, you have to adjust your training focus. Don't get stuck on this one point, okay?" "No problem, coach." When Yan Yuan returned to the training ground, Gnabry had already set up the training cones and obstacles, and assistant coach Kramer also came to help, carrying a tablet and a speedometer. The coach agreed. Gnabry tossed a soccer ball over. Yan Yuan caught it steadily. "Yes, but they gave me a week." Gnabry clapped his hands and said, "That's enough, Yan. Let's start with the basics and get started." For the next half hour, Yan Yuan practiced his starting posture repeatedly under Gnabry's guidance. The knee bend angle, the center of gravity, the stride of the first step, every detail was repeatedly adjusted. Gnabry suddenly stopped him. "No, Yan, you're too focused on the standard of your movements, which is making you lose your explosive power." He walked over to Yan Yuan and placed his hands on his shoulders. "Relax, imagine there's a vicious dog chasing you." Yan Yuan closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to find that sense of urgency. When he opened his eyes again, his body had automatically adjusted to its optimal state. "That's right." Gnabry took a few steps back. "Now, sprint all the way to the third marker disc." Yan Yuan shot off like an arrow, but this time the feeling was completely different. His first step was nearly 0.3 seconds faster than usual, and assistant coach Kramer looked at the numbers on the speedometer in surprise. "My God," Kramer murmured, his explosive power just now was 12% higher than the previous times. Gnabry whistled to let Yan Yuan rest for a moment, and said to him, "It seems it's not that my teaching is so good, it's that you, this student, are too abnormal." Yan Yuan walked back, panting, but with an excited smile on his face. "You're right. I mean the trick you told me." It felt like I suddenly had an epiphany. System notification, Gnabry's skill compatibility increased by 2%. The training has entered its second phase, focusing on dribbling and breaking through defenses. Gnabry demonstrated this himself, with each change of direction accompanied by explosive acceleration, and the ball, in most cases, seemed glued to his feet. The key to this move is the change of rhythm, Gnabry paused to explain. When dribbling at high speed, it's important to start slowly and then speed up, making it difficult for the defender to predict your next move. Yan Yuan tried to imitate him, but failed several times. Either the ball was too far from his body, or he lost his balance when changing direction. His ball control style is one-on-one dribbling breakthrough, so it is still quite difficult for him to learn high-speed dribbling. Don't rush, Gnabry patiently pointed out the problem. Yan, I know your footwork is great, but your problem right now is that you rely too much on your footwork. A real breakthrough on the wing requires full-body movement. You need to use your shoulder to feint and deceive your opponent with your eyes. This hint made Yan Yuan realize something. When he tried again, he first looked to the right while his left shoulder dropped slightly. The moment Gnabry shifted his weight, he suddenly flicked the ball to the left with the outside of his right foot, and his whole body broke through from the other side like a spring. Beautiful. Assistant coach Kramer couldn't help but applaud. That was perfect. Gnabry put his hands on his hips and said, feigning anger, no way, buddy, it took me a long time to learn this move back then, and you've already mastered it? That's really disheartening. Yan Yuan wiped his sweat sheepishly, no, I'm far from good enough. There are still many details to perfect. Don't give me that, Gnabry laughed, tossing him a bottle of water. Now we'll practice real-world applications. In the final stage of training, Kramer played the role of the defensive player, and Yan Yuan needed to break through within 30 meters. On his first attempt, Kramer easily intercepted the ball. On his second attempt, he hesitated too much and almost crashed into an obstacle. But on the third time, Yan Yuan first approached Kramer at a moderate speed, then suddenly stopped 2 meters away, and at the same time stepped on the ball with his right foot and pulled it back. Just as Kramer shifted his weight forward, he poked the ball forward with his left foot, overtaking from the outside like a cheetah. A perfect solo run. Gnabry yelled from the sidelines. That's awesome. That's the feeling. Yan Yuan stopped, panting heavily, but his eyes were surprisingly bright. He could sense that the skill-matching accuracy for one dragon on the side lane on the system panel had improved again. Mr. Kramer, one more time, he volunteered. When the training ended, the clock was only pointing to 9 o'clock, just over 2 hours had passed. Gnabry looked at Yan Yuan, who was drenched in sweat, and shook his head, my God, I prepared a whole day's training plan today, and you mastered it in 2 hours. Coach Kramer, who was organizing data, looked up and added, Yan, your data just now showed that the success rate of breakthroughs on the right flank has increased from 30% to 71%. That's quite a speed of improvement. It's simply inhuman, Gnabry remarked, walking up to Yan Yuan and speaking earnestly. Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, are you real, please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages. Chapter 13 A Precious Opportunity. On the final training day before the new season, the lights in Hoffenheim's tactical meeting room shone brightly in the evening. Today, the coaching staff is holding an important tactical meeting to discuss the lineup for the first round of the German Cup. In previous seasons, this issue wouldn't have been a topic of discussion, the starters would have been the only option. But this season is different. Hoffenheim also has the Champions League to play this season. They are competing on 3 fronts, the Champions League, the League, and the Domestic Cup. They must come up with a new rotation lineup. Nagelsmann stood in front of the tactics board, his fingers lightly tapping the projector's remote control. The screen displayed defensive heat maps from Erfurt's last 5 matches. This is their opponent in the first round of the German Cup. At this time, the coaching staff also arrived. Assistant coach Kramer, physical trainer Schmidt, technical analyst Keller, and scouting director Weert sat around a long table, each with notebooks and data sheets spread out in front of them. Nagelsmann got straight to the point. In the first round of the German Cup, our opponent is Erfurt Red-White from the 3rd Division. He pressed the remote control, and the screen switched to the opponent's goalkeeper's positioning weakness during the save. According to the data, what they fear most is high crosses and quick counterattacks. Kramer nodded, Coach, we mainly use a 4-2-3-1 formation in the preseason, which is a good opportunity to test the effectiveness of this system in actual combat. The problem is personnel arrangements. Fitness coach Schmidt pushed up his glasses. Liverpool's Champions League qualifier is just 3 days after the cup match ends, and we need to consider the fatigue of our key players. There was a brief silence in the meeting room. Nagelsmann walked to the coffee machine, poured himself a cup of black coffee, and the steam quickly dissipated in the air-conditioned room. My idea is rotation. He took a sip of coffee, his tone calm but undeniable. In this German Cup match, we'll keep the 4 key positions for the starters, and field substitutes for the rest. The scouting director, Wirth, immediately frowned. Coach, although the opponents in the first round of the German Cup are weak, quite a few strong teams have been upset. Are we sure we want to do this? So we're keeping 4 starting positions. Nagelsmann drew a triangle on the tactics board with a marker. Captain Voigt will anchor the defense, Kramaric will control the midfield tempo, Gnabry will be responsible for the decisive strike, Uth will play as a striker, and the other positions will be filled by substitutes. Technical analyst Keller suddenly realized something. Coach, you want that Asian kid to start, right? Nagelsmann did not deny it. You all saw Yan Yuan's performance in the friendly match. He needs formal match experience. That's too risky, Wirth shook his head. He's only 17. The intensity of the German Cup is completely different from that of a friendly match. Nagelsmann put down his coffee cup, the bottom of which made a crisp sound as it hit the table. Do you remember how the media initially described Thomas Muller when he first started out? Too young and inexperienced, until he delivered a stunning performance at the German Cup. The meeting room fell silent again. Assistant coach Bremer flipped through the data sheet and suddenly looked up. Actually, there's a set of data that's quite interesting. Yan Yuan's steal success rate in scrimmage training is 3rd in the team, only behind Voigt and Pozic. That's right, and his 12-minute run data is even higher than Kramaric's, so there's absolutely no problem with his physical condition, the strength and conditioning coach added. Nagelsmann walked back to the tactics board and circled the left-back position of Erfurt's red and white team with a red pen. Look at this again, their left-back's turning speed is the second to last in the 3rd division. If Yan Yuan takes turns attacking on the right flank. Wirth's expression softened slightly. Let me double-check, coach, are you sure you want to use the German Cup for training? This isn't training, Nagelsmann corrected, it's an investment in the future. He pulled up a compilation of Yan Yuan's training videos. Look at this kid's off-the-ball movement and passing choices. He doesn't look 17 at all. He's more like a seasoned veteran who has played in the Bundesliga for 10 years. The video shows Yan Yuan's assist during a scrimmage. He first pretended to cut inside, then suddenly flicked the ball with his heel to Gnabry on the wing, while making a run and drawing away 2 defenders. This seasoned kicking style earned a slight nod from everyone in the conference room. I think the coach's idea is right, and there's an advantage to doing it this way, technical analyst Keller suddenly said. Liverpool are definitely gathering information on our tactics right now. If we field our strongest lineup in the first round of the German Cup, it will be like revealing our Champions League tactical intentions in advance, which will be very disadvantageous for us. This statement finally provides the best evidence for Nagelsmann's idea. Wirth sighed and closed his notebook. All right, coach, I reserve my opinion but will abide by the decision, however. He looked seriously at Nagelsmann. I still want to say that if we can't break the deadlock by halftime, we must bring on our starters immediately. Deal. Nagelsmann smiled. He finally pulled up a chart showing the number of days between the Champions League qualifiers and the German Cup, saying, remember, our ultimate goal this season is the Champions League. As the meeting ended and everyone was leaving, Nagelsmann called out to Kramer alone, starting tomorrow, give Yan Yuan extra training in set-piece tactics. I want the Erfurt red-white defense to remember this kid's name. In the afternoon, the door to Nagelsmann's office was ajar. Yan Yuan stood outside and knocked 3 times. He didn't know what the coach wanted to say to him, but he was somewhat expectant. Come in. A voice came from inside the office. Yan Yuan pushed open the door and entered, seeing Nagelsmann frowning at the computer screen, his fingers rapidly typing something on the keyboard. Coach, you wanted to see me? The office was filled with the smell of coffee and tactical diagrams, and several player reports and data sheets were scattered on the table. Sit, Nagelsmann said without looking up, his fingers continuing to tap on the keyboard. Yan Yuan sat down in the chair opposite the desk, his back ramrod straight. From the side, he could see a video of a match on Nagelsmann's computer screen, from their friendly against Stuttgart last week, with the footage frozen on the moment Yan Yuan assisted Gnabry. Do you know why I called you here, Yan? Nagelsmann finally looked up and pushed up his glasses. Yan Yuan asked, somewhat uncertainly, Coach, is it the German Cup? Nagelsmann turned the computer screen toward him. That's right, in the first round of the German Cup, against Erfurt Red Whites, I plan to start you. Yan Yuan's pupils contracted slightly, but his expression remained almost unchanged. He nodded, thank you for your trust, coach. Don't thank me right away, Nagelsmann leaned back in his chair. This isn't a reward, it's a test. The defense of the third division teams is much fiercer than in the warm-up games. They won't go easy on you just because you're a newcomer. We're going to be competing on 3 fronts this season, so no one can fall behind, including you. Friendly reminder, the internal messages function for logged-in users has been optimized. We can receive and reply to your messages in a timely manner. Please check the internal messages page in the user center. Chapter 14, the fans didn't even know who he was. On August 13th, the area outside the Stadio Stadium in Erfurt was packed with fans. Despite it being only the first round of the German Cup, Hoffenheim's arrival still set the small town ablaze. Local fans, holding beer mugs, gathered in 2s and 3s at the stadium entrance, discussing the upcoming match. I heard Hoffenheim sent half a substitute team this time. A middle-aged man in a red and white jersey scoffed. Did they think we were here to give away points? Don't get too excited, his friend next to him shook his head. Even if they're not at full strength, Bundesliga teams aren't easy for us to beat. Inside the stadium's media section, reporters were busy typing away on their keyboards. The first round of the German Cup is always a breeding ground for upsets, and Hoffenheim's squad this time has made it even more of a topic of discussion. Kicker reporter Krug stared at the starting lineup, his eyebrows raised high. Has Nagelsmann gone mad? I know he's preparing for the Champions League qualifiers, but I didn't expect him to dare to field such a lineup, with more than half of the players being substitutes. His colleague, Schneider from Bild, shrugged, what's so special about that? Look at the right-winger position, Yan Yuan. 17 years old. An English Chinese? This kid has never even played a single official professional league match before, has he? Kruger quickly flipped through the data. He scored in the preseason friendlies, but in an official match, this is his debut. In the commentary booth, Sky Sports commentator Weber was adjusting the microphone. The director handed him the latest starting lineup, which he glanced at, his lips twitching slightly. Hoffenheim's starting lineup tonight, well, let's just say it's very creative. Nagelsmann is clearly focused on next week's Champions League qualifier, but the German Cup is not a competition where you can play with fire. His partner, former German international Schneider, chimed in, Yan Yuan. I have absolutely no recollection of that name. Did Nagelsmann just grab someone from the youth team to fill the roster? Weber smiled and said, don't jump to conclusions. Schneider, Nagelsmann has always had his reasons for hiring people. Although sometimes it may seem like he's gambling with his life, I think he must have his reasons for doing so. In the locker room, Hoffenheim's players were making their final preparations. Yan Yuan sat in front of his cabinet, head down, tying his shoelaces. Today, he tied his shoelaces very tightly. Nervous? Nabri walked over and patted him on the shoulder. Yan Yuan raised his head, a faint smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. A little. That's normal, Nabri grinned. That's how it is for newcomers to make their official debut. They'll get used to it after a few more times. Ute, standing next to him, added, yes, Yan, you'll get used to it after a few more times. I feel the coach values you a lot. The coach actually values each and every one of us. We'll have to rely on everyone when we get on the field, Yan Yuan replied, then continued to focus on checking his shin guards. The noise in the locker room seemed far away from him, all he could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat, thump, 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 as clear as a drumbeat. Nagelsmann pushed open the door and entered, and the locker room instantly fell silent. He held a tactical tablet in his hand, his gaze sweeping over everyone, finally lingering on Yan Yuan for a second. Listen, he began, his voice not loud but extremely penetrating. I can guess what people outside are saying even with my toes. Hoffenheim is underestimating the German Cup, Nagelsmann is playing with fire. He sneered, let them say what they want. Tonight we only have one goal, win the game and advance to the next round with dignity. He walked to the tactics board and tapped the right flank. Yan, your task is simple, break through their left flank defense. Let me emphasize again, their left back is slow to turn, but he has a lot of subtle moves. Don't get angry with him. I know you're not an easily angered person. Understood, coach. Yan Yuan nodded and stretched his ankles. Nagelsmann then looked at the others. Voigt, you're the captain, lead these lads to play more clearly. Gnabry, cooperate more with Yenda, don't let him carry the team alone. The atmosphere in the locker room gradually heated up. Voigt stood up and clapped his hands vigorously. Come on, let them see that even if we take turns, not just any Tom, Dick, or Harry can take a bite out of us. In the players' tunnel, Yan Yuan stood in the middle of the team. He could hear the noise of the fans in the stands and smell the grass mixed with the scent of anti-slip spray. The Erfurt players would glance at him from time to time, their eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of disdain. Is that the 17-year-old kid? The opposing midfielder whispered to his teammate. An Asian? Can he even play football? Hey kid, did Nagelsmann send you up here because they ran out of other options? Yan Yuan pretended not to hear them and didn't argue with them. He just stared at the exit ahead. The light at the end of the passage was getting closer and closer, and his heartbeat was getting louder and louder. In the press area on the sidelines, Kruger was speaking rapidly into a microphone. Number 17, Yan Yuan, an Englishman of Chinese descent, has no prior professional match experience. Nagelsmann's bold choice of players this time will either be a stroke of genius or a disaster. Schneider interjected, I lean more towards the latter. The German Cup is not for training kids. Nagelsmann's choice this time was too bold. In the stands, Hoffenheim fans who had come with the team held up scarves and sang intermittently. Most of them were hearing the name Yan Yuan for the first time. Who is this? From the youth team. A middle-aged fan frowned as he looked at the roster. Clearly, this middle-aged fan hadn't been following Hoffenheim's preseason games. He's not from the youth team, he's a substitute for the first team. I've seen his performance in the friendly match, and he played quite well. His son, standing beside him, pulled out his phone and quickly searched. His name is Yan Yuan. I think he scored a goal in the preseason, but in the official match. The boy shook his head. There is absolutely no data. Yan Yuan stood near the center circle, bowed his head, and stomped on the grass. The referee's whistle was about to blow, and his professional debut was about to begin. As soon as the starting whistle blew, Hoffenheim's players surged across the halfway line like a tidal wave. Nagelsmann stood on the sidelines, hands in his suit pockets, his eyes fixed on the pressing formation in the attacking third. To be honest, he was a little nervous today. He had never used so many players at once in the previous German Cup matches. Back on the pitch, in the attacking third, Yan Yuan, Gnabry, and Oaks formed a diamond-shaped defensive line. Their steady runs completely disrupted Erfurt's backfield passing options. This was a strategy Nagelsmann had set from the beginning. In the 12th minute, Erfurt center-back Andre was forced to pass back to the goalkeeper under pressure, but the pass was a little weak. Friendly reminder, the reading experience for VIP members has been optimized. Simply tap the center of the screen to bring up the menu, where you can easily navigate to Settings, Previous Page, Next Page, and Back to Top. Chapter 15 Last-minute world-class goal. Before the start of the second half, a relaxed atmosphere filled Hoffenheim's locker room. Nagelsmann stood in front of the tactical board, a rare smile on his lips. Strictly speaking, he said, directly addressing the player, those 2 goals in the first half were even better than I expected. He continued. But don't think that's enough. In the second half, I want you to continue tormenting their left flank. Don't worry, coach, this is my job. Yan Yuan nodded in reply, the sweat on his forehead not yet completely wiped away. Captain Voigt walked over and gave him a hard squeeze on the shoulder. Kid, you're making those guys look like amateurs. Laughter erupted in the locker room. Gnabry feigned displeasure and yelled, Hey, have you all forgotten about me? I gave him an assist in the first half. Nagelsmann tapped the tactical board, and the atmosphere immediately became serious. Listen, guys, we're changing formation in the second half. He drew an asymmetrical 3-4-3 on the board. With Akpoguma tucked inside from the back, the right flank was left to Yen alone, while Gnabry and Bosch created a numerical advantage on the left, drawing their defensive focus there. The referee's knocking interrupted the tactical planning. As the players got up and headed toward the tunnel, Yan Yuan felt someone tug at his jersey. When I turned around, I saw it was AUX. "Hey, Yan," Oaks whispered, "their left back has already received a yellow card, keep it up." "Of course, Oaks, let's work together." Yan Yuan and Oaks bumped fists. As soon as the second half began, Hoffenheim's tactical changes immediately took effect. In the 48th minute, Grilic won a corner kick on the right. The Erfurt players were on high alert, forming an impenetrable wall of defenders. But Oaks suddenly started from the penalty area line, pretending to receive a short pass, and this fake run instantly disrupted the defensive formation. Grilic keenly spotted the opening and delivered a low, quick corner kick to Voigt, who was lurking on the edge of the penalty area. "That was a beautiful combination," commentator Weber exclaimed. Hoffenheim's set-piece design was brilliant. It's the same corner kick tactic they used to beat Bayern at home last season. Voigt didn't try to score, instead passing the ball back to Polanski at the edge of the box. Polanski's low shot was saved by the goalkeeper, but striker Uth appeared like a ghost in the 6-yard box and easily tapped in the rebound. 3-0. The players in Erfurt were clearly panicked. Centre-back Merkel yelled at her teammates, "How could you leave the far post open?" Goalkeeper Lucas angrily kicked the ball towards midfield, muttering, "Is this a Bundesliga team playing against an amateur team?" The slaughter at Hoffenheim continues. In the 63rd minute, Nagelsmann's fake 9 trap began to take effect. According to the tactical arrangement, Oaks dropped back to the defensive midfield position, and Uth moved to the left wing in coordination. This positional switch left Erfurt's centre-back completely disoriented. Their decision-making speed is far slower than that of the Hoffenheim players. With the help of defender Voigt, Polanski once again successfully controlled the ball and passed it to Yan Yuan on the right flank. When Yan Yuan received the ball on the right wing, while the Erfurt players were anxious and eager to score, he surprisingly attracted the attention of 3 defenders at the same time. These Erfurt players are determined to defeat Yan Yuan this time, no matter what, and can't let him have it too easy. Watch how this is handled. This is Yan's first time facing such a high-pressure environment. Schneider suddenly raised his voice. As soon as he finished speaking, Yan Yuan pretended to cut inside, and in the instant the opposing defender shifted his center of gravity, he suddenly backheeled the ball to the onrushing Grilic. "We see." Yan Yuan didn't blindly break through. He remained calm and thoughtful, the commentator exclaimed. Before the ball even hit the ground, the latter delivered a precise long pass over the top, finding Gnabry making a run down the left flank. Gnabry took a short run up and jumped on one leg, leaping high into the air, his thigh driving his lower leg to kick the ball hard towards the goal. A volley. Goal. 4-0. Weber almost shouted himself hoarse. That combination was flawless. From Yan Yuan's backheel to Grilic's long pass, and then Gnabry's finish, it was perfect. Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, "Are you real?" please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages. Let's continue with Chapter 16. The locker room after the game still echoed with the laughter of teammates and the bang of champagne being opened. Gnabry found a bottle of mineral water from somewhere and, taking advantage of Yan Yuan's inattention, poured it all over him from behind, which caused a burst of laughter. "Welcome to professional football, kid." Voigt laughed and patted him on the back. "Scoring 4 goals in your debut? You're going to steal the jobs from us old guys." Yan Yuan wiped the water off his face, and couldn't help but smile. He looked down at his phone. The screen was already overflowing with unread messages, from his teammates in the Paris youth team, his childhood friends, and even a few buddies he'd met playing pickup football in England. Just as he was about to reply to each of them, Kramaric put his arm around his shoulder. "Yan, don't rush to check your phone, you're the star tonight." Kramaric said, handing him a sports drink, "Let's toast our superstar with a drink instead of alcohol." The celebration in the locker room lasted for nearly an hour, until the strength and conditioning coach reminded everyone that it was time to go back and rest. The August night still carried the lingering warmth of summer, and a gentle breeze blew through my sweaty hair, bringing a touch of coolness. He took a deep breath, the adrenaline rush from the game still lingered in his body, and his steps felt as light as if he were walking on clouds. As soon as he opened the dormitory door, his phone rang, and the words, "Dad," on the screen warmed his heart. "Son," came the father's loud voice from the other end of the phone, with the commentary of the game being replayed on the television in the background. "4 goals. 4 goals. My son scored 4 goals in his debut in the German Cup." Mr. Yan's voice trembled slightly with excitement. "Did you see the replay of your world-class goal? The way the ball fell in the air was practically pre-planned." Yan Yuan held his phone between his ear and shoulder, laughing as he changed into his slippers. "Dad, calm down, you're making my ears hurt from yelling." "Calm down? How can I be calm?" Dad paced back and forth on the other end of the phone, the sound of his leather shoes hitting the floor clearly audible. "Do you know how many people messaged me today? My German client, who loves football, called me directly today and asked if my son would consider joining Bayern Munich in the future." Yan Yuan couldn't help but laugh out loud, placing his sports bag on the chair. "Well, Bayern Munich has to want me, ha 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 ha." Dad suddenly became serious. "And also, the positioning for the first goal, the calm shot for the second, and that assist, these weren't just luck. Son, your father has been in the foreign trade business for so many years, and I've never misjudged people." His voice became proud again. "If you keep playing like this, becoming a star is only a matter of time. Your old man, will be proud to be your agent." Yan Yuan walked to the window and looked at the lights of the training field in the distance. His father's words warmed his heart, but at the same time he felt a bit of pressure. "Dad, you can't score 4 goals in every game. Today, you really had an exceptional performance." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the phone, followed by a hearty laugh. "Of course. Of course. I'm not that senile yet." Father Yan's voice suddenly lowered. "But son, do you know what I'm most proud of? It's not those 4 goals, but the choices you make every time you get the ball. That backheel pass, and the change in rhythm when you break through, those aren't just guesses." Yan Yuan felt his eyes getting hot. Our coach specifically asked me to observe the defender's center of gravity before the game." "That's right." Yan's father's voice was suddenly interrupted by another familiar female voice. "Oh dear, your mother can't wait to grab the phone." "Son." Yan's mother's gentle voice came from behind, and in the background, Yan's father could be heard muttering, "I haven't finished speaking yet. Are you tired? Mom saw that you couldn't run any more at the end of the race." Yan Yuan rubbed his slightly sore thighs. "It's okay, Mom, I just had a little cramp, but the team doctor said it's nothing." "That's good." Mother Yan's voice was filled with concern. "Is it still hot in Germany? Remember to drink plenty of water after training. Have you finished the chrysanthemum tea I sent you?" "Not yet, I'll brew it tomorrow." Yan Yuan felt a pang of guilt as he thought of the unopened packet of tea in the cupboard. "Stop talking about tomorrow," Mrs. Yan scolded. "You're a professional player now, you need to learn to take care of yourself. By the way, are you keeping up with your German lessons?" Yan Yuan breathed a sigh of relief when German was mentioned. German is not difficult. It has similarities to Chinese grammar. Apart from the difficulty in memorizing words, it is quite easy to learn. As long as you can keep up with your studies, that's good. The mother's voice suddenly became serious. "Playing football is a short-lived career, but knowledge is what truly belongs to you. I don't object to you playing football, but your academic studies absolutely cannot fall behind, understand?" "Okay, Mom," Yan Yuan replied obediently, feeling particularly at ease being nagged. Yan's mother's voice softened again. "Also, if training is too tiring, tell the coach. Don't push yourself. I saw you get bumped several times today." "Mom, that's normal competition," Yan Yuan replied carefully. "That's how it is in professional football." The parents could be heard arguing quietly on the other end of the phone. Finally, the father took the receiver back. "Son, your mother is just too nervous, and..." His tone suddenly became serious. "Have your coaches revealed any information about the Champions League qualifiers?" Yan Yuan sighed. "Dad, you know I can't say these things, they're team secrets." Yes, professional ethics," Dad quickly corrected himself. "I was just asking casually." "Okay, I won't disturb your rest anymore, remember." Yan Yuan smiled and replied. "I know, I remember to drink water, attend classes on time, and take care of my health. I remember all of that. Dad, you and Mom should get some rest too, and stop staying up late watching replays. After ending his call with his family, Yan Yuan was finally able to rest. He went into the bathroom, where the warm water washed away his fatigue and the bits of grass. The mirror gradually became blurred by the mist, but he could still see the smile on his lips. After drying his hair, Yan Yuan took out the packet of chrysanthemum tea that his mother had sent from the cabinet and carefully put it into a mug. As the hot water poured in, a faint fragrance wafted out. He picked up the cup, walked to his desk, and opened his school textbook. He always remembered what his parents said and always listened attentively. The next morning, as soon as Yan Yuan stepped into the training base, he sensed an unusual atmosphere. Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, "Are you real?" please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages. Chapter 17, Learning is also an important task. In the office at Paris Saint-Germain's training ground, sports director Luis Enrique was reviewing a scouting report that his assistant had just brought him. Outside the window, the first team's training was underway, with Neymar and Mbappé practicing new combinations, their laughter occasionally drifting in through the glass. Director, did you watch Hoffenheim's 6-0 scoreline? Assistant coach Lucas handed over a tablet, the screen showing a loop of Yan Yuan's 4 goals. It's that Chinese kid, he used to be in our youth training program. Enrique took the tablet and quickly browsed the match highlights. In the video, Yan Yuan calmly slotted the ball past 2 defenders before scoring, followed by another stunning long-range shot from 25 meters out that found the top corner. Enrique's expression gradually changed from nonchalant to serious, but he quickly regained his composure. It's just a cup match, he said, handing the tablet back to Luis. The opponent is just a third-division team, their defensive strength is on a completely different level from that of a French team. He took a sip of coffee, not paying much attention to the news. But those 4 goals were truly beautiful, Lucas said, flipping through the statistics, especially the one from 25 meters out. Lucas, look out the window, Enrique interrupted him, pointing out the window. On the training field, Mbappé had just completed a brilliant backheel pass when Neymar received the ball and deftly chipped it into the net, prompting applause from the coaching staff and other personnel on the sidelines. See that? That's what you call the art of football, Enrique said with a satisfied smile. We spend so much money to buy star players, that's the kind of dominant performance we want. He turned and pulled an old file from the filing cabinet. As for Yan Yuan, I remember him. The youth training coach said he had good basketball IQ, but his physical strength was too poor, and... He turned to the last page of the evaluation report. His technical skills assessment is B-, indicating insufficient potential for improvement. Lucas shrugged after hearing this, but it seems he has made considerable progress. It's just a flash in the pan, there are far too many examples like this in the world of football, Enrique said, closing the file. Dozens of kids leave the youth academy every year, and occasionally 1 or 2 shine in other leagues, which is normal, but only 1 in 10,000 can maintain that level. Don't forget, we have many more talents in our youth academy who are far more outstanding than Yan Yuan. On the training field, Neymar and Mbappé finished a set of practice exercises, chatting and laughing while putting their arms around each other's shoulders. Enrique watched this scene, his smile deepening. Look at those 2, that's world-class level. Yan Yuan. Let's see if he can perform like that in 10 consecutive Bundesliga matches. Remember this, Lucas, the German Cup and the Champions League are 2 different things. Besides, we have a world-class attacking line, we don't need to gamble on these discarded youth academy players. Enrique's assessment of Yan Yuan has always been summed up in 4 words, a player abandoned by the youth academy. At this moment, Mbappé on the training field seemed to notice the gazes from the office and waved in their direction. Enrique immediately put on a smile and waved back. Enrique suddenly remembered something and said, by the way, has the media department prepared the press releases for next week's match against Lyon? The focus should be on the chemistry between Neymar and Mbappé. It's already being arranged. Lucas quickly jotted down some notes. Should we also keep an eye on Yan Yuan's subsequent performance? Enrique waved his hand, just follow up routinely, no need to put in too much effort. His gaze returned to the training field, where Mbappe was demonstrating a dazzling series of cycling moves. We should focus our attention on more important things. Yan Yuan's file was casually stuffed back into the bottom of the cabinet, piled up with the data of other abandoned youth training players. Outside the window, Neymar and Mbappe began another round of training together, each touch of the ball carrying the weight of a player worth hundreds of millions of euros. Meanwhile, hundreds of kilometers away in Germany, a boy who had once been abandoned by them was quietly practicing extra hard. When Enrique left the office, the scouting report on Yan Yuan was already hidden under a stack of transfer budget documents. The stars of Paris Saint-Germain still shine brightly, and no one cares about a star that once faded away and shone briefly here, at least not now. The atmosphere in Hoffenheim has been particularly tense these past 2 days. The training base was shrouded in the morning mist. Nagelsmann stood on the sidelines with his hands in the pockets of his sports jacket, watching the players warm up. With the first leg of their Champions League qualifier against Liverpool just 2 days away, Hoffenheim are all preparing seriously. See? That's the advantage of a rotation strategy, assistant coach Schrode said in a low voice, flipping through the data panel. With a full reserve squad for the German Cup, the starters are like fully charged beasts. He pointed to Kramaric, who was doing a shuttle run. Look at his explosiveness, it's even more intense than during preseason training. Nagelsmann nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping across the training field. Voigt and Gnabry were passing and cutting on the other side, their rhythm as smooth as a mirror image. Goalkeeper Baumann made 3 consecutive diving saves to deny tricky shots during a save drill, drawing cheers from the goalkeeping coach. Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, "Are you real?" please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages. Chapter 18, wanting to help but powerless to do so. On the morning of the match, Hoffenheim's team bus slowly drove into the dedicated passageway of the Rhein-Neckar Arena. When Yan Yuan got out of the car behind his teammates, the security personnel were clearly taken aback. He saw the young man wearing a training jacket, dressed neither like a player nor a staff member. Sir, what are your identification documents?" The security guard stopped him. Voigt grabbed Yan Yuan's shoulder from behind. "Hey, this is our team's special observer, the coach's precious apprentice." He winked at the security guard. "You mean the one who scored 4 goals in the German Cup, remember?" The security guard suddenly realized and smiled as he let him through. "Of course I remember. Good luck, young man." Yan Yuan's 4 goals were scored at Erfurt's home stadium, so the Hoffenheim home security guards didn't remember him very well. However, after being reminded, I remembered. Upon arriving in the locker room, while his teammates were busy changing their gear, Yan Yuan quietly took out a pen and notebook from his locker. Gnabry tossed Yan Yuan a pack of chewing gum. "Hey, superstar, if you have time today, remember to write down the defensive habits of Liverpool's 19-year-old star, Arnold. Get lost. The coach told me to keep an eye on Robertson. Arnold, figure it out yourself." Yan Yuan laughed and shoved the chewing gum into his pocket. Ute, who was wearing bandages, looked up when he heard this. "Then you'd better watch carefully, Yan. That guy's speed in chasing back is like he has an engine installed, although you're not slow either." "Yes, I will observe carefully." Yan Yuan said okay. The locker room fell silent the moment Nagelsmann pushed open the door and entered. The coach's gaze swept over everyone, lingering on Yan Yuan for half a second before walking over to him. "Kid, the observation seats are ready. They're on the right side of the podium. Remember to bring this, it'll give you a better view." The assistant coach handed over a pair of professional tactical binoculars. As Yan Yuan took it, Kramaric whistled and teased, "Wow, VIP treatment." "You can shut up now, Kramaric." Nagelsmann stopped his teasing, then said to Yan Yuan. "Yan, I want you to record the changes in Liverpool's defensive positioning every 15 minutes. Remember, you are not an ordinary spectator, nor an ordinary player." Then, Nagelsmann straightened Yan Yuan's collar again. "Watch carefully, learn well, kid." "I understand, coach, I understand perfectly." Yan Yuan nodded solemnly. Upon leaving the dressing room and arriving at the audience seats, Yan Yuan was immediately recognized by the commentator. "Look who this is. Yan Yuan, Hoffenheim's rising star from the first round of the German Cup. But he's not wearing a jersey today, he found his place in the stands. Looks like Nagelsmann has given him a special task tonight." His partner laughed and said, "It's a smart decision. Rather than rushing this kid onto the field, it's better to let him use his tactical acumen to digest this kind of high-level match." By the way, Hoffenheim's entire team is in excellent form tonight. Nagelsmann's rotation strategy has been successful. When Yan Yuan found his seat, the surrounding fans immediately stirred up a commotion. A little boy wearing a Hoffenheim scarf timidly tugged at his sleeve. You're that 4-goal scorer from the German Cup." Yan Yuan squatted down to look the child in the eye. "It's me, little friend. Just call me Yan. Today, let's cheer for the team together." "Yan. It really is you." The middle-aged man in the back row excitedly pulled out his phone. "Can we take a photo together? I've been following you since the friendly match." "Of course, sir." After Yan Yuan cooperated with the photo shoot, an elderly football fan next to him suddenly handed her a bag of chocolates. "Kid, have some candy. I've been watching football for 30 years, and that long-range shot of yours is the best debut goal I've ever seen. Believe me, you'll be a star." "Thank you, sir," Yan Yuan said with a smile as he accepted the candy, "but today I'm here as a student." He waved the notebook in his hand. The old man nodded knowingly. Coach Nagelsmann never misjudges people. His decision to have you sit here has a deeper meaning than letting you play. The competition time is approaching. The stadium lights suddenly came on, and the players from both teams began to enter the field. Yan Yuan adjusted the focus of the telescope and drew Liverpool's 4-3-3 formation diagram in advance on his notebook. His position was directly opposite Liverpool's left flank defense, allowing him to clearly see Robertson's every move. "It's time to begin," he muttered to himself, his fingers unconsciously tracing the edge of the notebook. Nagelsmann's last words of advice before the match echoed in my mind. Remember, watch their first reaction when they are countered. The stands erupted in deafening cheers as the players lined up, but Yan Yuan's attention was completely focused on the figure wearing the red number 26 jersey. Liverpool's left-back Robertson. For Yan Yuan, tonight is not a night for him to watch the game as an ordinary spectator. Tonight is another night of invisible training for him. As soon as the whistle blew to start the match, the commentator's voice came through the stadium loudspeakers to the stands. "Ladies and gentlemen, the first leg of this Champions League qualifier is about to begin. Liverpool will be missing Coutinho, Lalana, and Sturridge for this match, while Hoffenheim will be at full strength and in top form. The outcome of this game may surprise many." His partner chimed in. "That's right, under Nagelsmann's tutelage, Hoffenheim's defensive counter-attacking style is quite sharp. But Liverpool's young players shouldn't be underestimated either. Look at their lineup. 19-year-old starlet Trent Alexander-Arnold started at right-back today." Yan Yuan adjusted the focus of the tactical telescope and laid the notebook on his lap. His position was directly opposite Liverpool's defense, and he could clearly see the centre-back pairing of Lovren and Klavan. Less than 3 minutes into the game, he noticed a detail. Whenever Hoffenheim advances with the ball, Liverpool's fullbacks Arnold and Robertson quickly move inside to form a 3-man defense with the centre-backs. Meanwhile, the two wingers, Main and Sulla, dropped very deep, almost forming a 5-man midfield. Friendly reminder, if you find this book helpful, please add it to your bookshelf to avoid losing it later. Chapter 19. Your notes made me feel much better. When the halftime whistle blew, Yan Yuan remained seated in the stands. While the surrounding fans got up to buy beer or go to the restroom, he kept his head down, quickly sketching on his tactics board. He gained a lot from watching the first half of the game. Liverpool's left flank defense was indeed as Nagelsmann had predicted. Robertson's forward runs are extremely wide, but when chasing back, he has a fatal habit. He always subconsciously blocks the inside, leaving the outside corridor open. Yan Yuan highlighted this point in his notes. The stadium's big screen is replaying key moments from the first half. When Yan Yuan looked up, he saw the scene of Bowman's heroic dive to save Sulla's one-on-one chance. On the sidelines, Nagelsmann was calling Kramaric and Gnabry aside, his fingers constantly tapping on the heat map on his tablet. On the other side, Klopp put his arm around Arnold's shoulder and encouraged him loudly. The young Arnold was very excited, and his back was completely soaked. Just 2 minutes into the second half after halftime, Liverpool nearly extended their lead. Main made a sudden stop and change of direction on the left wing, shaking off Voigt, and then delivered a low cross to the edge of the 6-yard box. Firmino's shot was extremely difficult, but Bowman practically poked the ball out of bounds with his fingertips. Yan Yuan heard a collective gasp behind him. That Brazilian's adjustment before the shot was too subtle, he completely fooled our centre-back, muttered an elderly fan wearing glasses nearby. Yan Yuan nodded silently and wrote in his notebook, Firmino's tendency to feint and then actually shoot is obvious in the penalty area. No sooner had he finished writing than Hoffenheim launched a sharp counterattack. Gnabry's moment to shine arrived. After receiving the ball, he made a through pass into the right side of the penalty area and unleashed a powerful shot that flew into the far corner, but the linesman had already raised his flag. Offside. The cheers that had just erupted in the stadium instantly turned into boos. Why? Why is it always small clubs like ours that are targeted? Is the referee blind? That wasn't an offside goal. Corrupt referee. From the stands, Hoffenheim fans could be heard constantly grumbling. I could see with my heels that the ball was not offside. Nagelsmann also complained to the referee. They were already at a disadvantage, and then a goal was disallowed. The fourth official had to come over and remind him to calm down. Klopp then took the opportunity to call Arnold to the sidelines and quickly gave him a few tactical instructions. 3 minutes later, the young English starlet found Maine with a precise cross, but unfortunately Maine's volley was saved by Baumann once again. The commentator sighed. Liverpool's right-wing attack is like it has a positioning system. Youngster Arnold has already delivered 5 key crosses tonight. He is crucial. Yan Yuan's binoculars closely followed Robertson's movements. When Milner received the ball on the left wing, the Scottish fullback did not blindly push forward as he did in the first half, but instead maintained a reasonable distance from the 3 centre-backs. Yan Yuan immediately realized that Klopp must have adjusted the defensive strategy during half-time. In the 66th minute, Hoffenheim missed another good chance. Kramaric broke through on the left and crossed the ball. Gnabry had a great chance near the penalty spot, but his shot went over the crossbar. Upon seeing this, Nagelsmann smashed his water bottle on the ground, the splashing water startling the players on the bench who scattered in panic. 4 minutes later, Liverpool's Sulla had a half-chance in the right side of the penalty area, but Baumann made another incredible save. However, Yan Yuan noted that the shot was caused by Nordtveit's mistake in pressing forward, as he rashly left the defensive zone, resulting in a huge gap in the centre-back line. This mistake quickly led to disaster. In the 74th minute, Milner crossed the ball from the left wing, and Nordtveit inadvertently poked the ball into his own net while trying to clear it. A fatal, classic own goal. The entire stadium fell into a deathly silence, except for the Liverpool fans in the away stands who were celebrating wildly. To make such a disastrous mistake under such high pressure. Nordtveit's performance tonight was a nightmare. This is just adding insult to injury for Hoffenheim. Their Champions League journey doesn't look smooth at all, the commentator exclaimed. Of course, it's already quite an achievement to be drawn against Liverpool. Nagelsmann, his face ashen, grabbed Nordtveit's arm as he walked past the coaching area with his head down, almost yelling at him. Tell me, Nordtveit. What the hell were you thinking? Did you need to use the outside of your foot to handle that kind of cross? Nordtveit lowered his head and didn't dare to talk back, but Voigt pulled him back onto the field with kind words. Yan Yuan had never seen Nagelsmann lose his composure like this. What worried him even more was that the Hoffenheim fans in the stands began to boo sporadically. The elderly fan next to him, who had enthusiastically taken a photo with him during halftime, was now covering his face in frustration. Although Uth pulled one back in the 87th minute, it was too late. In stoppage time, Hoffenheim's relentless attack failed to change the score. When the final whistle blew, Liverpool players high-fived each other in celebration, while Hoffenheim players either slumped on the grass, unwilling to get up for a long time, or stood with their hands on their hips, ready to face criticism from the fans. Yan Yuan closed his notebook, which was filled with notes, feeling as heavy-hearted as if he had participated in the competition himself. His notes were professional and detailed, from the timing of the diva-style attack by Liverpool's fullbacks to Sulla's habitual footwork when cutting inside, and the positioning flaws in the Reds' defense during set pieces. But at this moment, the defeat in the game cast a shadow over all these analyses. As he left the stadium, the murmurs of the surrounding fans continued to reach his ears. Nordtveit's blunder was so amateurish, I could have done better. Gnabry wasted at least 3 excellent chances today. The goalkeeper was our only bright spot tonight. Friendly reminder, if you encounter ads asking, "Are you real?" please ignore them and close the window. Do not scan the QR code or send any text messages. Chapter 20 Unlocking New Skills. In the days following the defeat against Liverpool in the first leg, the atmosphere at Hoffenheim's training ground remained somewhat subdued, and the players were still struggling to recover. In the morning sunlight, everyone walked into the training field in twos and threes, with less of the usual laughter and chatter. Nordtveit has been a bit less proactive these past couple of days. During training, he was rather quiet and would occasionally stare blankly at his right foot, which was the very foot that kicked that damn own goal. This goal hit him hard. He kept thinking that if he hadn't scored that own goal, Hoffenheim could have at least secured a draw. Unfortunately, there are no what-ifs. He was indeed a sinner, and he felt very guilty. After changing into his training shoes, Yan Yuan noticed Nordtveit doing strength training alone in the weight room. He walked over, casually picked up the dumbbell next to him, and gently nudged Nordtveit with his shoulder. "Hey Kevin, I'll need your long passes in future games." Nordtveit paused for a moment, almost dropping the barbell plates in his hands. He spoke, his voice rather dry. "Are you sure about my current condition?" Yan Yuan adjusted his shin guards, but his eyes remained fixed on the other person. "Absolutely, definitely, and without a doubt. I've studied Werder Bremen's defense. Their left back is alright, but I trust your long passes. As long as your long passes find me." He made a diagonal pass gesture. "I can make him lose his bearings." Yan Yuan remained considerate, and as the team's warm baby, he comforted Nordtveit in his own way. Sometimes the best way to comfort a teammate is not to directly comfort them or tell them not to be sad, but to tell them, "I still need your help, the team can't do without you." The key to comforting someone is letting them know that they still have value. Nordtveit stared at Yan Yuan for a few seconds, then suddenly burst out laughing. "You kid, when did you learn to be a psychologist?" Yan Yuan was talking nonsense with a straight face. "I just took my psychologist certification exam last week, and it's very expensive. I'll treat you to it for free this time." Nordtveit was in a much better mood, and as the two were chatting and laughing, Amiri strolled over whistling. "Hey, is our Mr. Four Balls counseling a patient?" He reached out and bumped fists with Yan Yuan. "How's it going, kid? Ready to receive my brilliant pass for your Bundesliga debut?" Just as their fists collided, a system notification flashed before Yan Yuan's eyes. Amiri's interaction level has reached 100%, unlocking the skill, midfield attack motion machine, current match rate 91%. He was almost choked by this unexpected surprise. Amiri is a well-known midfield dynamo in the Bundesliga. This skill can increase the probability of the ball carrier seeing the midfield attacking lines and further improve his overall vision. Although Yan Yuan primarily plays as a right winger, this midfield skill still greatly benefits him. Yan Yuan's reading comprehension skills are already quite good, what he lacks is a certain level of decision-making and timing. With this midfield skill, he can better seize opportunities to break through and attack from his position, and at the same time, he can better understand his teammates' thoughts. This is also why the initial skill matching rate is as high as 91%, because Yan Yuan and Amiri are not much different in terms of reading ability. "What's wrong? Did I grow thorns on my hand?" Amiri looked at Yan Yuan, who suddenly froze, with a puzzled expression. "No. I just thought of a tactical idea." Yan Yuan quickly adjusted his expression. "How about we try it out in the training match later?" As they were talking, Nagelsmann's whistle interrupted their conversation. He also knew that the players were not in good condition after the game, and as their coach, he had to encourage them. He addressed the crowd with a loud reprimand. "I know this game has hit you guys hard, but you all need to hold your heads up. Losing to Liverpool isn't the end of the world, but it's definitely disheartening. The season has only just begun, and the Champions League qualifiers aren't over yet. We're only one goal behind, we still have hope." The players unconsciously straightened their backs. "Kevin," Nagelsmann suddenly called out, and Nordtveit shuddered. "Your tackles last season were in the top 10 in the Bundesliga. One mistake and you've forgotten who you are." Nordtveit opened his mouth, but ultimately just shook his head heavily. Then, the coach turned to everyone. Friendly reminder, login users can permanently save their bookshelf data across devices. We recommend that you log in to use this feature.